Hey guys, just want to say thanks for tuning in today. Smash that subscribe button if you're new here, and as always, please like this video if you enjoy the stories. Now, let's get into the stories.
I was already having a weird night before I even opened the app. My room felt stale, like the air had been sitting there too long, and my phone was buzzing nonstop from random notifications that didn't matter. I was half laying on my bed, half scrolling, when her profile popped up. Not in the way profiles usually do, not in that swipe rhythm where you forget faces right after. It felt like she had been waiting for me specifically, like the app skipped a beat just to show her. Same age as me, close enough to meet without planning. Photos that looked normal but somehow too clean, like they had been taken just to be uploaded and nothing else. I swiped right without thinking, and the match happened instantly. No animation delay, no confetti, just matched. We started talking, and it felt easy, almost too easy. Not flirty in a loud way, just comfortable, like picking up a combo you already had but forgot about. I didn't even notice how fast time moved. 1 minute it was late afternoon. The next it was dark outside my window, and she was suggesting we meet. Not later, not some other day. Tonight. I should have hesitated, but I didn't. I told myself I was just bored, that it would be a quick thing, maybe awkward, maybe fine. We picked a spot that wasn't romantic or crowded, a small late night cafe near a bus terminal, the kind of place that smells like old coffee and cleaning spray. People came and went, but nobody stayed long. When I walked in, I spotted her right away. Same face as the photos, same hair, same clothes, even. That part should have comforted me, but it didn't. It felt more like seeing someone you recognize but can't place, like a classmate from years ago whose name you forgot. We sat down and everything stayed normal on the surface. Her expressions matched the moment. Her reactions were timed right, but something underneath felt off. Like she was always half a second ahead of me. I would think about checking my phone and she would already be looking at it. I would shift in my seat and she would do it too, same direction, same pace. I laughed it off in my head, told myself I was overthinking. After a while, she leaned forward and asked to see my phone. Not in a demanding way, more like curiosity, like she wanted to see something funny I mentioned earlier. I didn't feel threatened by it. I handed it over without unlocking anything, planning to do it myself. But as soon as it touched her hand, the screen lit up. I didn't press anything. Tinder opened on its own. The screen froze for a second, then refreshed like it was loading old data. Her profile appeared, but not the one I just matched with. It was the same pictures, same name, but the layout looked slightly different, like an older version of the app. At the top was a warning banner in dull gray text, saying I had already matched with her before. No explanation. No date, just that. My stomach dropped, not in a dramatic way, just heavy. She stared at the screen like she was confirming something she already knew. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even look confused. She just handed the phone back to me like nothing happened. The app closed by itself the moment my fingers touched the screen. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was probably a glitch. Maybe I had swiped on her months ago and forgot. Tinder does weird stuff all the time. But the feeling didn't leave. It sat there, pressing into my chest, making every breath feel shallow. I checked my matches list. Nothing. No old combo. No archived chat. Nothing that showed we had ever crossed paths. Things shifted after that, not in a loud way. The lights in the cafe felt harsher. The background noise felt muffled. She started talking about stuff we hadn't talked about yet, things I had only thought about. My old school, the bus route I took home, the fact that I sometimes slept with the TV on even though I told people I did. Each detail landed like a quiet tap on glass, not enough to break it, but enough to make me notice how thin it was. I told myself she probably just scrolled my socials before meeting. People do that. Still, I couldn't shake the sense that I was catching up to something that was already in motion. When we finally stood up to leave, I noticed something else. She didn't grab a jacket even though it was cold out. When we stepped outside, she didn't react to the temperature at all. We parted ways without any big moment. No hug, no plan to meet again. She walked toward the terminal, blending into the moving crowd like she belonged there more than I did. I watched until I couldn't see her anymore, then headed home. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone felt wrong in my hand, heavier than usual. Around 2 in the morning, I opened Tinder again. I don't know why. I just needed to see something normal. Instead, I saw her profile at the top of my matches. Not as a new match, but grayed out, like it was inactive. When I tapped it, the chat opened, filled with messages I didn't remember sending. They were casual, boring even, stuff about homework, bad coffee, missing buses. The timestamps were from 3 years ago. Back when I still lived at my parents' place. Back when I was using a different phone. The profile picture in the chat was slightly different too. Same girl, but younger, like the photos had been taken before the ones I saw tonight. I scrolled up until my thumb started to hurt. The combo ended abruptly, no goodbye, no closure. Just stopped. The last message was from her, asking if I was still there. I checked the date again. It was sent the night my phone got stolen at a house party I barely remember. I deleted the app right then. Not just logged out, fully deleted. I sat there in the dark, listening to the low hum of the fridge through the wall, telling myself it was coincidence stacked on coincidence. People look alike. Apps plug out. Memories blur. The next day, I felt watched. Not followed, not stalked, just observed, like my life was being checked against a list. Small things started to repeat. I would see her face in reflections, not clearly, just the shape of it. A girl on the bus with the same posture. Someone in a store with the same voice laugh. Every time I looked properly, it was her. 3 days later, Tinder was back on my phone. I knew I didn't reinstall it. The icon was there like it had never left. I opened it, hands shaking now for real. My profile was gone. My photo was my bio and everything. Instead, I saw her account logged in. Not just her profile, her inbox, her matches. Hundreds of them. I realized then that my name was showing up in her chats. Not just once. Over and over years apart. Same opener. Same casual tone. Same ending where the combo just stopped. Every version of me disappeared at a different point. Different age. Different background details. Same outcome. I closed the app and threw my phone onto the bed like it burned me. It buzzed almost immediately. A notification from Tinder. It said new match. I did open it. I didn't need to. I already knew who it was. That was a week ago. Nothing else has happened since. No messages. No sightings. My phone is normal again. But sometimes when I unlock it, for just a split second, I see Tinder loading in the background before it switches to my home screen. And every time it happens, I get this deep, sinking certainty that the warning wasn't about the past. It was about what keeps restarting. The night didn't start scary. That's the part that messes with me the most. It started boring. I was laying on my floor with my phone on my chest, staring at the ceiling fan like it might give me advice. The match had been sitting there all day, unopened like a dare I kept walking past. His profile wasn't flashy. Just normal pics, same kind of places everyone takes pics at, same lazy smile. Nothing about him screamed bad idea. What got me stuck was the silence. No double texts. No pushy energy. Just one message asking to meet later that night, sent hours ago waiting. I kept opening the app and closing it again. My room felt too quiet. The house felt empty even though my sister was supposed to be home. I checked the time over and over like it might change its mind. Part of me wanted to bail and blame a headache. Part of me was already picturing what I would wear. I told myself I was just overthinking because I always do that. Eventually I stood up, grabbed my hoodie, and left without telling anyone where I was going. The place we picked wasn't a cafe or a bar. It was a public park that stayed open late because it was next to a hospital. Lots of lights, security cars passing through, benches bolted to concrete. I told myself that made it safe. I parked across the street and sat in my car longer than I meant to, watching people walk past the entrance. Joggers, nurses on break, someone walking a dog that didn't want to walk. I remember checking my reflection in the mirror and thinking I already looked tired. Then I saw him. He was sitting on a bench near the path, exactly where the overhead light was brightest. Hands folded, posture straight, not on his phone, just facing the entrance. Facing me. My car windows were tinted, but I still felt exposed, like he could see straight through the glass. I didn't recognize him right away, and that scared me because I should have. I had looked at his photos enough times. but seeing him in real life felt like looking at a copy that wasn't printed right. I sat there frozen, keys still in my hand. I hadn't even opened my door yet. I thought maybe he was just early. People do that. I checked the time. I was actually 5 minutes early. That made my stomach twist. He was just early. He was early for me. When I finally got out of the car, he didn't wave. Didn't stand up. Didn't check his phone to confirm it was me. His eyes followed me the whole way from the curb to the bench. Not in a creepy, exaggerated way. More like he didn't feel the need to pretend otherwise. When I sat down, that's when he let it slip. Not like a confession. More like a casual comment, like telling someone the weather. He explained that he had already been there for a while. That he got there early on purpose. That he had been sitting there watching me sit in my car across the street. Watching me decide whether or not I was going to show up. My brain stalled out. I felt heat crawl up my neck and into my ears. I didn't know what to do with that information. It wasn't technically a threat. It wasn't a joke either. It was just a fact he seemed proud of, like he had solved a puzzle before I even knew I was playing. I told myself not to panic. The park was lit. People were around. I could leave whenever I wanted. Still, my body felt locked into place. Everything after that felt slightly off rhythm. Like I was reacting a second too late to everything he did. When he leaned back, I leaned back. When he crossed his legs, I did the same without realizing. He knew things he shouldn't have known. Not deep secrets, but small stuff. The kind of details you don't remember giving out. How long I usually wait before replying. The fact that I circle parking lots instead of pulling into the first spot. The way I pretend to scroll when I'm actually watching reflections. Each thing by itself meant nothing. Stacked together, it felt like someone had been keeping notes. I kept thinking about how long he had been sitting there before I arrived. 10 minutes. 20. Longer. I thought about him watching my car from that bench, watching the headlights stay on, watching me move around inside. I wondered how he knew it was me before I even stepped out. My car was in my profile. My plates weren't visible from that angle. The only explanation was that he had been watching every car, waiting to see which one hesitated. At some point I realized I had stopped checking my phone. It was still in my pocket, but it felt far away. The park noise faded into background static. Even the hospital lights across the street looked dimmer, like they were turning their faces away. I noticed his shoes were clean, like he hadn't walked far, like he had been dropped off right there. I tried to ground myself by noticing dumb details. The gum stuck under the bench, the flicker in the overhead light, the smell of cut grass mixed with disinfectant drifting over from the hospital vents. I told myself to finish this and leave. I didn't need closure. I didn't need it to make sense. Then he mentioned something that made my chest go tight. He referenced a night I had read a message and never replied. Not this week. Not this year. Years ago. Different phone. Different app layout. He didn't describe the message itself, just the pause afterward, the way I disappeared, the timing of it. I realized then that he wasn't talking about this match like it was the first one. He talked about it like a continuation, like I had wandered off mid-scene and finally wandered back. I tried to remember if I had ever seen his profile before. Nothing came up. No image. No name. But the way he talked made it feel like forgetting was accidental. The longer I sat there, the more the park felt staged. People stopped passing by. The dog walker was gone. No security cars rolled through. It felt like the world had narrowed down to that bench and the space around it. I could still leave, I knew that, but my legs felt heavy, like they belonged to someone else. What finally broke it was the way he looked at the entrance again. Not at me. Past me. Toward the street. Toward my car. Like he was checking to see if I was thinking about running. Like he was tracking the option in real time. That was enough. I stood up so fast the bench rattled. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I just walked. I could feel his eyes on my back the whole way. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to give him that. When I got into my car, my hands were shaking so bad I dropped my keys. I locked the doors immediately even though he was still on the bench, still not moving. As I pulled away, I glanced in the mirror. He was still sitting there, not watching me anymore, watching the entrance, waiting. I blocked him before I even got home. Deleted the app right after. Sat on my bed staring at the wall, trying to slow my breathing. I told myself it was over. Just a bad meetup. A weird guy. Nothing more. The next morning, I had a notification. Tinder, new message. Same profile picture. Same name. The message wasn't angry, wasn't confused. It just mentioned that I left faster this time. Like that was a data point. Like there had been other versions where I didn't. I didn't respond. I didn't open it again. But sometimes when I pass that park, even during the day, I catch myself checking the benches before I realize I'm doing it. And every once in a while, when I'm sitting in my car deciding whether to go somewhere or not, I get this cold awareness that the decision might not be as private as I think. I knew something was off before I even left my place, but it wasn't fear. It was more like pressure, like when you forget something important but can't remember what it is. My phone had been acting weird all day, lagging, overheating, opening apps on its own for half a second, then closing them again. Tinder was already open when I unlocked it, sitting on her profile like it had been waiting. I don't remember opening it. I just remember staring at her pictures longer than normal, trying to figure out why my stomach felt tight. Her profile wasn't flashy. No filters. No trendy poses. Just clean photos taken in plain places. White walls, parking garages, empty rooms. Her face was calm in every picture, same expression every time. Not smiling, not serious, just neutral. I remember thinking it looked like an eyed photo that learned how to blink. When we matched, she didn't waste time. She suggested meeting somewhere public, somewhere bright. A copy shop that stayed open late near a college campus. Printers, scanners, fluorescent lights. She said it would be quick. I almost didn't go. I sat on the edge of my bed scrolling for distractions, telling myself I was tired. But the pressure wouldn't go away. It felt like if I didn't go, something would follow me instead. That didn't make sense, but it worked. I grabbed my jacket and left. The copy shop smelled like warm paper and toner, the kind of smell that sticks in your throat. There were only two other people inside, both focused on machines, backs turned. She was already there, standing near the counter with a folder tucked under her arm. She looked exactly like her pictures. Same neutral face, same posture. No hesitation when she saw me, like she had been waiting for confirmation, not introduction. We sat at a small table meant for filling out forms. The lights hummed overhead, loud enough that it felt like privacy even though we were in the open. Everything felt procedural. No small talk energy. No awkwardness. Just steps unfolding. She asked me to verify my identity. Not in a casual way. Not like checking a profile for catfishing. She wanted me to unlock my phone, open the camera, and hold it up so she could see my face next to the screen. I hesitated, but the way she watched me made it feel pointless to argue. Like the decision had already been made and I was just catching up. I did it. My reflection stared back at me from the screen, pale under the harsh lights. She leaned in slightly, eyes moving between me and the phone with focus that felt practiced. Then she nodded once and reached into the folder. She pulled out a printed photo. It was me. Not a selfie, not a profile picture. A candid shot taken from an angle that made my stomach drop. I was sitting somewhere, head turned slightly, mid-blink. The background was blurry but familiar. My old kitchen. The place I lived before I moved last year. The photo was printed on plain paper, black and white, like it had come straight out of one of the machines around us. At the top, in neat lowercase text, it said previous attempt. My brain locked up. I stared at the photo, then at her, then back at the photo. The resemblance was perfect because it was perfect. Every detail matched. The small scar near my eyebrow. The crooked way my hair falls when I don't style it. This was something scraped from social media. This was taken without me knowing. She laid the photo flat on the table and compared it to my face, tilting her head slightly like she was lining up measurements. I felt like an object, like a package being checked against a manifest. She didn't look disturbed. She looked relieved. The longer I stared at the photo, the more wrong it felt. Not just because it existed, but because of how I looked in it. Tired. Thinner. My eyes looked empty in a way I didn't recognize. Like that version of me had been worn down by something I couldn't remember. I tried to think of explanations: prank, art project, some elaborate joke. But none of those explained how she knew where I used to live. None of them explained the label. Previous attempt implied there had been a process, an outcome, a failure. She flipped to the next page in the folder. Documents, printed forms, charts, all with my name on them, my birthday, old phone numbers I had forgotten, places I'd used to go late at night, even notes about habits, short lines like avoids eye contact when stressed or checks exits before sitting down. Things I never told anyone because I never thought about them consciously. I felt detached from my body, like I was watching someone else sit there. The shop noise faded. The machines stopped sounding like machines and started sounding like breathing. I realized the other two people had left at some point. We were alone with the employee behind the counter, head down, headphones in. She asked me to verify again. This time she wanted me to stand under the brightest light and face forward. I did it without thinking. My legs moved on their own. She held the printed photo up next to my face and studied the differences. There were a few, small ones. The curve of my jaw looked sharper now. My eyes looked more alert, like I had recovered from something. She seemed disappointed. She marked something on one of the papers with a pen. The sound of it scratching against the page felt too loud. Then she slid the folder back together and tucked it under her arm like nothing had happened, like this was just a routine check that didn't quite pass. I asked what previous attempt meant. She didn't answer. She just looked at me with that same neutral expression and checked the time on her phone. The implication was clear. The meeting was over. Whatever she needed to see, she had seen enough. I didn't wait. I grabbed my jacket and left. The night air outside felt unreal, like stepping out of a movie theater midday. Everything was too bright, too sharp. I walked without direction, just needed space between me and that building. When I got home, I locked the door and checked every room even though I knew no one was there. I sat on my bed and it opened Tinder, hands shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. Her profile was gone. Unmatched. No trace. Like it had never existed. Except it had. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo. The label. Previous attempt. I kept thinking about what the next attempt would be. What had gone wrong last time? Why I didn't remember it. 2 days later, a package showed up at my door. No return address. Inside was a single printed sheet. A new photo, me again. Taken recently. Walking down the street. This one had a different label. Current version. I haven't gone back on Tinder since. I deleted the app, wiped my phone, changed my routines. But sometimes when I pass a copy shop or hear the hum of fluorescent lights, I get this tight feeling in my chest like I'm overdue for something. Like somewhere out there, a folder is getting thicker, and the next page already has a title waiting. The first thing that went wrong was how calm I felt about everything. No nerves, no excitement, just this flat confidence like I had already done the night once and was replaying it. I remember thinking that was weird, because I usually overthink everything. But this time I just grabbed my jacket, checked my phone battery, and walked out like it was another errand. Tinder had been quiet all day, no weird glitches, no ghost notifications. His profile was still there, still normal, still boring in a safe way. We met somewhere I wouldn't usually go, a small late-night arcade attached to a bowling alley on the edge of town. Not many people, but not empty either. Buzzing machines, flashing lights, loud enough that you don't have to force conversation. It felt neutral, like nothing bad or good was supposed to happen there. He was already inside when I walked in, leaning against a change machine, watching the entrance like it was a screen playing a show he had been following for a while. He looked normal, not better or worse than his pictures. Same hoodie, same tired eyes. The kind of guy you wouldn't look twice at if you passed him in a hallway. That almost made me relax. Almost. We started walking around, playing games, killing time. Everything stayed lay on the surface. No pressure. No weird questions. But I noticed something small early on. He never seemed surprised by anything I did. If I went to a machine, he was already there. If I stopped to tie my shoe, he stopped too. like he was tracking me instead of reacting. My phone buzzed once in my pocket and I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, longer this time, like a notification that wanted attention. I pulled it out, expecting nothing important. Instead, it was a Tinder safety check. The screen went dim except for a simple question asking if I felt unsafe right now. 2 buttons, yes or no. No extra text. No explanation. It felt sudden, like someone had tapped me on the shoulder in a crowd. I froze. I had never gotten one of those before. I knew they existed, but I thought they were random or triggered by reports. My heart started beating faster, not because I felt threatened, but because the timing felt wrong. I glanced up at him without thinking. He was smiling. Not a big grin, not creepy teeth or anything obvious. Just a small, satisfied smile, like something finally loaded correctly. He watched my phone screen instead of my face, eyes flicking between the options like he could see them clearly from where he stood. Then he nodded, barely noticeable, and his smile widened just enough to change the air between us. He made a comment then, not loud, not joking. He said something about it being good that it was working, like the app had just passed a test, like the moment had been planned. My stomach dropped hard. The arcade noise felt too loud all of a sudden. Lights flashed too close to my eyes. I felt like everyone around us had faded into props. I didn't answer the safety check. I locked my phone and shoved it back into my pocket like that could erase what just happened. I tried to act normal, kept walking, picked another game. But my body wasn't listening anymore. Every sense was dialed up. I noticed how close he stood now, closer than before. Not touching, just inside that invisible line. I noticed how he positioned himself between me and the exit without making it obvious. I noticed how my phone stayed silent after that, like it had done its part and backed off. I kept thinking about the safety check, how Tinder knew, how it chose that exact second. I wondered if it was based on location motions, something he did with his phone. I wondered if he expected it, the way he smiled told me he did. I told myself to leave, told myself I didn't owe him anything. But my legs felt slow, like I was walking through syrup. Every step away from him felt heavier than stepping toward him, and that scared me more than anything else. We ended up sitting at a small table near the back, plastic chairs bolted to the floor. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, posture relaxed. I stayed stiff, hands in my lap, phone pressing into my thigh like a reminder. He kept glancing at my pocket, not subtly, like he was waiting for another buzz. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time felt warped. I couldn't stop replaying his smile in my head. The confidence in it, the assumption that something invisible was backing him up, like the app wasn't there to protect me, but to confirm him. My phone buzzed again. Same safety check, same question. This time it felt heavier, like Tinder was insisting. I pulled it out slowly, my thumb hovering. My chest felt tight. My ears rang. I realized he had gone quiet. He was watching my face now instead of the screen, studying my reaction like it mattered more than my answer. I didn't press anything. The screen timed up after a few seconds and went dark. The moment it did, his expression shifted. Not angry, not disappointed, just recalculating, like a path had closed and another one opened. He leaned back in his chair and looked around the arcade, finally noticing the rest of the room again. I took that second and stood up. Didn't explain. Didn't make an excuse. Just stood and walked toward the exit with my heart pounding so hard I thought it might tip me over. He didn't follow me right away. That almost made it worse. I pushed through the doors and into the parking lot, cold air hitting my face like a reset. My car was farther than I remembered. Each step felt loud, exposed. Halfway there, my phone buzzed again. Not Tinder this time. A system notification telling me location sharing was active. I never turned that on. I opened my settings with shaking hands and saw Tinder listed as recently accessing everything. Location, motion sensors, Bluetooth, more permissions than I remembered granting. I unlocked my car and got inside, locking the doors immediately. I looked up and saw him standing just outside the arcade doors. Still not rushing, just watching. When he saw me notice him, he smiled again. Same smile, the one that said things were going according to plan, even now. I drove off fast, tires squealing, not caring how it looked. I didn't stop until I was back in my neighborhood, parked under a street light with my engine still running. My hands were numb. My phone buzzed one last time. Tinder safety check. Third time. Same question. I pressed yes. The app thanked me and said help resources were available if needed. No alert. No call. No instant response. Just a quiet confirmation that my answer had been received. The screen went back to normal like nothing happened. I deleted Tinder right there, wiped my phone, turned off location services completely. I sat in my car for a long time after that, staring at my reflection in the windshield, trying to slow my breathing. I haven't gone back to that arcade. I haven't reinstalled the app. But sometimes, late at night, my phone lights up for no reason. No notification, no sound. Just a screen waking itself, like something is checking to see if I'm still paying attention. I don't remember swiping on her, and that should have been my first clue. Not in a dramatic way, just a kind of blank spot that doesn't feel important until later. I remember opening Tinder that afternoon and seeing the match already there, like it had been waiting overnight. Her profile felt unfinished. No bio. 3 photos that looked like they were taken minutes apart in the same place. Same chair, same wall, same expression. Not bored, not happy, just alert. We talked for a bit, and it stayed surface level. Nothing deep, nothing flirty. The kind of chat you half forget while it is happening. What stuck out was how often she paused before replying, like she was listening to something else first. Sometimes the typing bubble would appear, disappear, then come back with a short response that felt slightly off topic, but still fit. We agreed to meet at a 24-hour laundromat near the edge of town. Weird choice, but it was public, bright, and open. I told myself it was safer than a bar. Rows of machines, cracked tile floor, tea bolted to the wall playing something muted and outdated. The place smelled like detergent and warm metal. I got there early and sat on one of the plastic chairs, scrolling to kill time. The hum of the washers was loud enough to blur thoughts. I kept checking the door without realizing it. When she walked in, I knew it was her immediately, even though I had never seen her move before. Her steps were measured, almost careful, like she didn't want to be noticed by the machines. She sat across from me without asking. Same clothes as her pictures, same expression. Her phone stayed face down on her lap. Mine was in my hand, open to our chat. I was mid-sentence, typing something pointless about the place being emptier than expected. The message never sent. The screen refreshed and the chat vanished. Not loaded ROM, not frozen. Just gone. Her profile disappeared with it. Unmatched. The app returned me to the main screen like nothing had ever been there. No error. No notification. Just absence. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering where the text box had been. My heart started beating faster, not because of the unmatch, but because of how clean it was. Like the app had erased a file properly instead of crashing. That was when she leaned forward. She told me that now we could talk without the app listening. She didn't whisper. She didn't smile. She said it like it was a relief, like someone finally closing a door on a loud room. The words hit me harder than I expected. My chest felt tight, like I had forgotten how to breathe normally. I laughed at first because I didn't know what else to do. I told myself she was joking. People joke about phones listening all the time, but her eyes didn't change. They stayed locked on my face, searching for something specific. Confirmation, maybe. I asked how she did that, how she unmatched so fast. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she glanced at the security camera in the corner of the room, then back at me. She said the app does like gaps, that it gets nervous when it can't track both sides of a conversation. That unmatching mid-interaction creates a blind spot. I didn't like how sure she sounded. I didn't like how she talked about the app like it was a person with habits. I told her I wasn't comfortable with this, that we could just leave. My voice sounded thin even to me. She tilted her head slightly, like she was disappointed but not surprised. She said leaving wouldn't change anything, that the app already knew we met, that the unmatch only stopped it from hearing what came next. I looked around the laundromat. 2 people folding clothes at the far end. One guy asleep in a chair near the door, the TV flickering silently. Everything felt normal, and that made it worse. Like the wrong thing was happening in the right place. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She turned it on and showed me the screen. Tinder was still open. Her profile was still there. Our chat was still there on her side, frozen mid-sentence with my last message half-typed. She scrolled up and down like she was showing me a picture, then locked the screen and put it away. She said the app only needs one side to listen. That was why she did it when she did. My phone buzzed in my hand. A Tinder notification popped up even though the app said I had no match. It was a message. It was a location update prompt, asking if I wanted to share my live location for safety purposes. Spelled wrong in my head even as I read it. Live location. The timing felt intentional, but the app was reaching out blindly, trying to reconnect. She noticed it instantly. Her eyes flicked down then back up. She nodded, satisfied. She said that was proof. Proof that it noticed the silence. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I didn't care. I told her I was leaving. She didn't try to stop me. She just leaned back in her chair and watched me like she had been expecting this part. She said something then that made my stomach drop. She said most people leave at that point, that the ones who stay usually regret it later. I walked to the door, every step echoing too loud in my ears. I expected her to follow. She didn't. I pushed outside into the cold night air and felt my lungs finally pull in a full breath. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my keys. I sat in my car for a few minutes, staring at the laundromat windows. She was still inside, sitting exactly where I left her, not moving. The machine spun around her like nothing had changed. I drove home and deleted Tinder before I even got inside, wiped permissions, restarted my phone. I tried to tell myself it was over. Just a weird Dave, a creepy person, nothing more. That night, my phone lit up on my desk without sound. The screen showed a Tinder safety check. Same question as before, asking if I felt unsafe. The app wasn't installed. I checked twice. The icon was gone. The store said it wasn't on my phone. The safety check stayed there for a full minute before disappearing on its own. The next day, I got a message from an unknown number. No greeting, no name. Just a sentence telling me I should keep my phone face down when talking about certain things. That some apps get jealous when they are shut out. I blocked the number, changed my settings, told myself to forget it. A week later, I was back at the same laundromat, not on purpose. My washer at home broke, and it was the closest place open. I sat in the same chair, waiting for my clothes, trying not to think about it. On the wall across from me was a printed notice taped crookedly near the change machine. It was there before. I was sure of it. It was a simple warning about phone use inside the building. Something about interference. Something about listening devices. At the bottom, someone had written a note in pen. It said conversations are cleaner without witnesses. I noticed the mistake before I noticed him. That sounds backwards, but that's how it felt. I was already walking toward the place, already replaying the night in my head, when this quiet certainty hit me that I had done this before. Not the date itself, but the walk. The same cracked sidewalk, the same busted streetlight that flickers like it is trying to remember how to work. My phone said it was my first time meeting him, but my body felt late. We were supposed to meet at a small used bookstore that stayed open past midnight because the owner didn't trust people during the day. It sat between a closed nail salon and a storage place, windows cluttered with handwritten signs and old flyers. It smelled like dust and old paper even from outside. I stopped at the door and checked Tinder one last time, just to make sure I wasn't mixing him up with someone else. His profile was still there. Same face. Same short bio that said almost nothing. Nothing alarming. I went in. He was already inside, sitting at a table near the back, foam flat on the surface in front of him, like it was part of the furniture. He didn't look up right away. He waited until I was close enough that leaving would feel awkward. Then he smiled like we were on time for something together. The store felt wrong in a quiet way. Not scary, just drained. The overhead lights were dimmer than they should have been, and the aisles felt too narrow even though they weren't. The owner wasn't visible anywhere. Just an open register and a bell that didn't ring when the door closed behind me. We sat down and everything started normal enough. Small talk energy, polite pauses, the kind of start that makes you think nothing will happen and you'll forget the whole thing by tomorrow. But I kept noticing tiny delays, like he would react to things before I finished doing them. I would shift in my chair and he would already be adjusting his posture. I would reach for my phone and he would glance down before it moved. After a few minutes, he picked up his phone and turned it toward me. Tinder was open. Not our chat, all of them. He scrolled slowly, deliberately, like he wanted me to really see it. Match after match. Same profile picture of me. Same name. But different conversations. Different tones. Different endings. Some of them stopped early. Some went on longer. Some ended abruptly in the middle of sentences. A few were gray and inactive like accounts that had been closed. He paused on one and tilted the screen slightly so the glare wouldn't hide it. This one went back months. The messages felt familiar in a way that made my head hurt. The jokes were mine. The spelling quirks were mine. The pauses between replies matched how I text when I'm distracted. I didn't remember sending any of it. He scrolled again. Another version of me. Same opener, but colder. Shorter replies. Less patience. That conversation ended with me not replying at all. Just gone. Another one. This one stayed longer. Asked more questions. Agreed to meet. The chat cut off right after the location was set. He didn't rush. He let me absorb it piece by piece. My chest felt tight, like my ribs were pressing inward. I kept thinking there had to be a simple explanation. Prank, shared account, fake screenshots. But the details were too precise. Even the typos were right. He asked me which version I preferred. Not out loud. He said it casually, like asking which photo angle I liked better. The one that stayed or the one that disappeared. He watched my face closely while he waited, like my reaction mattered more than my answer. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even decide what the question meant. Stay where? Disappear how? My mind kept snagging on the idea that both versions were me, that he was asking me to choose between strangers. He was asking me to pick a behavior. I asked how he had all of this. He said Tinder doesn't delete things the way people think it does. That conversations don't really end. They just branch. That every time someone stops replying or unmatches or ghosts, a version gets archived somewhere. Most people never see it. Some people know how to look. He scrolled again and showed me a folder view inside the app that I had never seen before. No labels, just dates. Dozens of them. Some recent, some years old, each one tied to my profile, each one a different outcome. I realized then that I recognized the bookstore, not just from tonight, from memory fragments that didn't belong to any clear timeline. Standing in this aisle, sitting at this table, leaving too fast, not leaving at all. My hands started shaking. I tucked them under my legs to hide it. The air felt stale, like it had been trapped between pages for too long. I asked him which version he liked. He didn't hesitate. He said the ones who stayed always felt more real, but they never lasted. He said the ones who disappeared were easier to keep. That sentence landed wrong. Not threatening. Just honest, like he was talking about pets that ran away versus ones that didn't. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced myself to move. I told him this was messed up, that I was leaving. He didn't react. He didn't try to stop me. He just nodded like this was another branch being created. As I walked toward the door, I felt this heavy pull in my chest, like I was stepping out of alignment, like I was breaking a pattern I didn't know existed. The bell didn't ring when I opened the door. Outside, the night felt louder than it should have been. Cars passing too fast. Wind pushing trash down the street. I got into my car and locked the doors. My phone buzzed immediately. Tinder notification. It said match updated. I opened the app without thinking. His profile was gone. Unmatched. Erased. My matches list refreshed and shifted like it was reorganizing itself. Then a new chat appeared at the top. Same name as mine. Same picture. But the preview text was something I remembered typing. It was a question asking if I was still there. I closed the app and threw my phone onto the passenger seat. My heart was racing. I told myself not to open it again, that this was done. The next day, I checked Tinder anyway. The chat was gone, but my profile felt different. The bio was slightly changed, wording I didn't remember choosing. A photo I didn't remember uploading was now first. It was taken from an angle I didn't recognize, in a place that felt almost familiar. Over the next week, small things kept shifting. I would think about replying to someone and find the message already sent. I would decide not to open the app and see that my match count had changed anyway. It felt like something was testing which version of me I was going to be now. Last night, I got a message from an unknown account. No photo. No name, just text. It said he liked this version better so far, said I seemed more decisive. I hadn't replied. I don't know if not replying makes me the one who disappears or just creates another copy that someone else gets to keep. The weird part is that the night felt borrowed, like I had picked it up from someone else and forgot to return it. I was standing at my window watching the lights from the freeway smear together, phone buzzing in my hand, trying to convince myself this was normal. Just another match, just another meet, but my body felt ahead of my brain, already tense, already tired, like it knew how this would go before I did. Her profile had been sitting in my matches for a while. Not ignored, just untouched, like a tab left open too long. Her photos were calm in a way that didn't invite questions. No filters, no big smiles, just her in different places that all looked quiet. A stairwell, a parking deck, a hallway with no doors. Every picture felt like it had been taken right before something happened, not during. We agreed to meet somewhere neutral but strange enough that it didn't feel like a date. An indoor botanical center that stayed open late because it shared power with a research lab. Glass walls, warm air, plants that didn't belong in this climate. It sounded peaceful, which is probably why I said yes. I got there early and wandered through the paths, pretending to read the small signs stuck into the soil. The air smelled wet and sweet like dirt and leaves trapped indoors. My phone showed no new messages, but I kept checking anyway. The glass ceiling reflected my own face back at me in fragments, and for a second I didn't recognize myself. She showed up without warning. No footsteps, no sound. She was just there on the path ahead of me, looking at a tall plant with leaves bigger than my torso. She turned when I got closer, already smiling like she had timed it. She looked exactly like her photos, which should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like proof of something. We started walking, following the path that looped through the building. Everything felt muted, like the plants were absorbing sound. Our voices stayed low without us trying. She asked normal stuff at first, where I was from, how long I had lived nearby. Nothing out of place, but she watched me in a way that felt like she was checking alignment. Like she was making sure the version of me in front of her matched something she had already seen. About halfway through, she stopped near a glass wall where condensation blurred the outside. She pulled out her phone and suggested we take a selfie together. Not for posting, just to remember the night. The way she framed it made it feel harmless, almost cute. I hesitated for a second, then leaned in. The phone clicked. She didn't look at the photo right away. She locked the screen and put the phone back in her pocket like she was saving it for later. That should have been nothing. People do that. But the moment lingered raw, like a skipped beat. We kept walking. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was reading too much into it. The plants around us grew thicker, leaves brushing my arms as we passed. The air felt heavier, warmer. I noticed there were fewer people now. Maybe closing time was coming up. Maybe I had lost track of time. Then she stopped again. This time she pulled her phone back out and unlocked it in front of me. Her profile was open. Tinder. I saw her pictures lined up the way they always are. She scrolled slowly, deliberately, until she reached one near the bottom. It was the selfie. The same one we had just taken. Same angle. Same lighting. Same expression on my face that I didn't remember making. My arm around her shoulder. The glass wall behind us fogged in the exact same pattern. It was just similar. It was identical. The date under the photo said it was from months ago. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I stared at the screen, then at the space behind her where the wall still stood, then back at the screen. My heart started pounding in my ears. She watched me closely, not smiling now, just focused. She scrolled away and back again like she was making sure I saw it properly. The comments under the photo were empty. No likes, no reactions, like it had been posted into a vacuum. I asked how that was possible, but the words came out wrong, tangled, and thin. She didn't answer directly. She said sometimes Tinder reuses content if it thinks it fits. Sometimes it fills gaps. She said it like she was explaining a feature, not a problem. I felt cold despite the heat. I checked my own phone with shaking hands. Opened Tinder. Her profile was still there. I scrolled. The same photo was there too. Same placement. Same date. When I tapped it, my reflection stared back at me from the glass screen, layered over a version of me from a night I didn't remember. I tried to think logically. Maybe I had been here before. Maybe I forgot. Maybe it was a coincidence stacked perfectly on top of another coincidence. But my body rejected that explanation immediately. I knew this place felt unfamiliar. I knew I had never stood under this exact light with her shoulder pressed against mine. She said something then that made my chest tighten. She said this was the first time I reacted like this. That sometimes I laughed it off. Sometimes I got quiet. Once I left without saying anything. She said tonight I looked closer than usual. I backed away a step. My foot slipped slightly on the damp floor, and I caught myself on a railing. The metal felt real and cold, and that helped for half a second. I asked her why she kept meeting me if this kept happening. She said she liked consistency, that Tinder liked it too, that the app was good at noticing patterns, but bad at understanding them. She said if two profiles kept fighting each other, it assumed that was the point. I looked around for an exit. The path seemed longer than before, curving away in ways I didn't remember. The lights overhead hummed louder now, or maybe I was just paying attention. I realized I couldn't hear anyone else. No footsteps, no voices, just the quiet rustle of leaves shifting under artificial air. I told her I was leaving. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She didn't argue. She just nodded and watched me like she was noting the outcome. Like this was another variation being logged. I walked fast, not running, afraid that would make it worse. Every reflective surface showed me and her side by side for half a second before she vanished from the frame. When I finally reached the exit, the night air hit me hard, sharp, and clean compared to the damp warmth inside. I did look back. In my car, my hand shook so badly I had to sit for a minute before turning the key. My phone buzzed. Tinder notification. Profile updated. I didn't open it. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and drove home with my eyes glued to the road. Later that night, curiosity won. I opened Tinder again. Her profile was gone, unmatched, erased, but the selfie was still there on my own profile. Pinned at the top now. I didn't remember adding it. The date still said months ago. The comments were still empty. I tried to delete it. The app froze. I restarted my phone. The photo stayed. The next morning I checked again. A new comment had appeared under the photo. No username. Just text saying this version looked better. I haven't gone back to that place. I haven't taken selfies on dates since, but sometimes when I open Tinder, I catch myself checking my own photos first, scanning for faces that don't belong there yet. The first sign something was wrong was how rushed I felt before I even left. Not excited rushed, not late rushed. More like I was holding up a line I couldn't see. My phone buzzed twice while I was tying my shoes, then went quiet like it had said what it needed to say. Tinder was open when I checked it, his profile sitting there like a reminder I didn't ask for. I stared at his pictures longer than I meant to, trying to figure out why my chest felt tight. Nothing about him looked threatening. Normal face. Normal background. Normal smile that didn't try too hard. We agreed to meet at a 24-hour diner that sat under a highway overpass. The kind of place with flickering lights and vinyl booths that stick to your skin. I picked it because it was busy, late, and cheap, and I could leave whenever I wanted. I remember thinking it was a safe choice, which almost made me laugh later. When I walked in, the bell over the door rang too loud. The smell of grease and coffee hit me at the same time. He was already there, sitting in a booth near the back, phone in his hand, eyes locked on the screen like it was giving him instructions. He looked up when he heard the bell, relief flashing across his face for just a second before it disappeared. We sat across from each other, and everything felt slightly off balance. Not awkward, just uneven, like he was waiting for something to catch up. He kept checking his phone, not scrolling, just glancing, locking it, unlocking it again. His leg bounced under the table hard enough to rattle the silverware. I asked if he was okay, and he nodded too fast, said he was fine, said he just needed a minute. His eyes flicked to the window, then back to his phone. The waitress came and went. The menu stayed closed in front of him like he had already decided. I tried to keep things light. Talked about school, work, nothing deep. He responded, but his attention kept drifting. Every few minutes, he leaned closer and lowered his voice, telling me I was taking longer than the others to decide. He didn't say decide what. He just kept saying it like it was a known thing, like there was a timer running somewhere I couldn't see. Each time he said it, my stomach twisted tighter. I laughed it off at first, assuming it was a weird joke that wasn't landing. But his face never matched the tone. He looked genuinely anxious, like he was watching the countdown tick down on his screen. I finally asked what he meant by the others. That was when he froze. His fingers hovered over his phone, thumb trembling. He glanced around the diner like he expected someone to be listening, then leaned in close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. He whispered that most people don't sit this long, that they usually make a choice early. Stay or go, agree or block. He said Tinder tracks that. He said it hates hesitation. I felt cold despite the warmth of the place. I checked my own phone, half expecting some kind of warning. Nothing. No notifications. No safety check. Just a home screen staring back at me. He kept talking, words spilling out faster now. He said the app had been acting weird for weeks, sending him reminders, nudging him to meet faster, pushing him to close loose. He said it told him he was running out of matches, not in the normal way, in a specific way, like it was measuring outcomes instead of numbers. I didn't know what to say. I told him he should probably take a break from the app. As soon as the words left my mouth, he flinched. Actually flinched like I had raised my hand. He shook his head hard and said he couldn't. That stopping made it worse. That when he tried to log out once, it kept him half logged in. Notifications without context. Matches that vanished mid-chat. His phone buzzed again. This time he didn't even look at it. He just stared at the table, jaw clenched. He whispered that I was still here. That was the problem. That the others usually left by now. I felt my pulse in my ears. I told him I was uncomfortable. Told him I was thinking about leaving. His head snapped up so fast it made me jump. His eyes were wide and almost pleading. He said not yet. Said if I left now it would count as a disappearance. Said those were the worst ones. I stood up anyway. My legs felt shaky but solid enough to hold me. The booth creaked as I slid out. He stayed seated, hands gripping his phone like it might run away. He whispered again that I was taking too long, that the app would notice, that it was already noticing. I backed toward the door, not turning my back on him. The diner noise felt distant, like it was coming from another room. When I reached the door, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. It was the message. It was a prompt asking if I wanted to continue matching tonight or take a break. The wording felt wrong. Too polite, like a suggestion hiding a demand. My hand shook as I locked my phone and pushed outside into the cold air. I didn't run. I walked fast to my car, heart hammering. Through the diner window, I saw him still sitting there, staring down at his phone. Then his shoulders slumped, like something had updated. I got home and deleted Tinder immediately. Wiped it, restarted my phone, paced my room until my legs ached. I told myself it was done. Just a weird guy. Just a bad night. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. Same app. Same notification sound. Tinder was back on my phone. Not installed, but present. The screen showed a message from him. No text preview. Just his name and a timer counting down. I didn't open it. I turned the phone face down on my desk and sat on my bed staring at the wall. The buzzing stopped after a minute. When I picked the phone back up, the app was gone again. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I re-downloaded Tinder, telling myself I needed closure. My profile loaded, but something was different. Under recent activity, it listed multiple meetups I didn't recognize. Different locations, different times, all marked as incomplete. I searched for his profile. It was there. No trace, like he'd have been removed cleanly. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. No greeting, just a sentence saying thanks for finally deciding, saying the system could move on now. I blocked the number and shut my phone off completely. Sometimes when I hesitate over small choices now, like whether to reply to a text or leave the house, I feel that same pressure in my chest, like I'm slowing something down just by thinking, like somewhere a clock is ticking again. I didn't even mean to open Tinder that night. My phone was already in my hand because I couldn't sleep, thumb moving out of habit more than intention. The room felt too quiet, like the walls were listening for something to happen. I had been live alone for almost a year by then, and most nights I liked it. The quiet, the control. But that night the silence felt staged, like a pause screen. Her profile was already open when the app loaded. Not the first card, not something I swiped to. Just there. She didn't look flashy or fake. Plain clothes, neutral background, eyes that looked like they were paying attention even in still photos. The bio was short and specific in a way that felt personal without being friendly. She matched with me before I even swiped. The screen barely refreshed. It just accepted it. We talked for a bit and it stayed normal, almost boring. She asked about my place early on, which I didn't think much about. When I said I live alone, she responded instantly, like she'd been waiting for that word. The rest of the chat moved fast after that. Not flirty fast, more like scheduling fast. She suggested meeting somewhere close to me. Walking distance. She said she liked keeping things simple. I told myself I could leave whenever I wanted. I told myself I was just restless. So I said yes. We met at a small neighborhood wine shop that stayed open late because the owner didn't care anymore. Half the lights were off, shelves uneven, a single table near the window. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't busy, just open enough to feel safe on paper. She was already there, sitting at the table with her phone face down. She looked exactly like her photos, which didn't calm me the way it should have. She didn't stand when I walked over. Just looked up and nodded like she had been expecting me at that exact second. We sat and talked. Normal stuff. Work, routines. She asked questions that felt harmless, but landed a little too accurately. How often I had people over. Whether my neighbors were loud. If anyone checked in on me regularly. She didn't push when I answered vaguely. She just adjusted like she was filling in blanks. At some point, she admitted something that changed the air completely. She said she only matched with men who live alone. She said it casually like a preference, like liking tall people or dogs, but the way she watched my reaction made it feel like a test. I laughed it off, asked why. She said it was cleaner, fewer variables, less noise. She said Tinder worked better that way. She said it helped with tracking. That word stuck in my head. Tracking. I asked what she meant. She didn't answer directly. She glanced at my phone on the table, then at the window, then back at me. She said the app notices patterns. Who logs in daily? Who goes quiet? Who disappears for a while? She said most people assume no one notices when they stop using an app. Then she asked if anyone would notice if I didn't log back in. She didn't say it like a threat. She said it like a survey question. Neutral tone. Curious, like she was gathering data. My heart started beating faster. I felt heat in my face and neck. I tried to joke, asked if she meant friends or the app. She said both mattered. She said the app noticed first. I told her I didn't like where this was going. She nodded like that response was expected. She said most people said that right before deciding. Deciding what she didn't say. She just kept watching me, waiting. I looked around the shop. The owner was asleep behind the counter. No other customers. The street outside was quiet, lights reflecting off empty pavement. It felt like the world had thinned out around us, leaving just enough to pretend nothing was wrong. She leaned back and told me she had done this a lot. Not dating. Meeting. She said she liked men who had predictable routines. Who logged in at the same times. Who went quiet when they got home. She said Tinder showed her that. Not directly, but in hints, response times, activity status, location pings that lined up too well to be coincidence. She said men who live alone were easier to read, easier to lose. I stood up. My legs felt stiff, but I didn't care. I told her I was leaving. She didn't react the way people usually do when a date ends badly. No surprise, no anger, just acceptance. She said that was one option. I walked out without finishing my drink. The night air felt sharp and clean compared to the stale shop. My apartment was only a block away, and I hated that fact suddenly. Hated how close she was to my front door just by knowing the area. When I got inside, I locked the door and checked the windows even though I knew they were closed. My phone buzzed as soon as I set it down. Tinder notification. It was the message. It was a reminder. It said something about staying active to get better matches. I swiped it away and deleted the app right then. Not logged out. Deleted. I told myself that was it. Just a weird date. Someone with control issues and too much app brain. I made food. Put on a show. Tried to relax. Around midnight, my phone lit up again, saying notification sound. Tinder was installed. I checked twice. The screen showed a prompt asking if I wanted to resume matching. It used my name, spelled right. I shut the phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to missed notifications, not messages, system alerts, background activity warnings. My phone said an app had been accessing location data overnight. Tinder was on the list. Something else was, something unnamed. I went to work anyway, trying to shake it off. All day I felt washed, not followed, just accounted for. Like my absence from the app was being logged somewhere. Like a box was still open waiting to be checked. When I got home, there was a note taped to my door. No envelope, no stamp. Just paper folded once. Inside was a single sentence written neatly. It asked if I was still offline. My hands shook as I tore it down. I looked up and down the hallway. Empty. Quiet. Normal. I went inside and locked the door again. That night I reinstalled Tinder. I don't know why. Panic, maybe. Curiosity. Pressure. The app loaded instantly like it had never left. My profile was still there. Nothing changed, except for one thing. Under recent matches, her name was gone. Instead, there was a blank profile. No photo. No bio. Just a timestamp showing recent activity. I tapped it. The chat opened with a single message waiting. It said that logging back in was good, that it made things easier, that now there was proof I still existed. I didn't reply. I closed the app and deleted it again. Since then, nothing dramatic has happened. No more notes. No more notifications. But sometimes when I unlock my phone, the screen takes a second longer than usual. Like it is checking something before letting me in. I still live alone. I still sleep with my phone on the table across the room. And every now and then, when I can't sleep and the silence gets too heavy, I wonder what would happen if I did log back in again. Not ever, and whether the app would be the first thing to notice. The first thing that made me uneasy was Tim. It was my phone. It felt warmer than usual in my hand, like it had been working overtime without telling me. I remember standing in my bathroom, light buzzing overhead, scrolling through Tinder while brushing my teeth, and noticing his profile load slower than the others. Not frozen, just thinking, like it was deciding something. I almost swiped left out of impatience, but then the match happened on its own, same as a few of the others I've learned not to trust. His bio was short and vague. Liked late nights, hated crowds, worked with data. That last part stuck with me, but not enough to stop anything. We talked for a bit and it felt fine. Normal pacing, normal jokes. He suggested meeting at a pop-up art space downtown that stayed open late on weekends. Open rooms, rotating installations, lots of people coming and going. I told myself that was safe enough. When I got there, the building felt hollow in a way I couldn't explain. Concrete floors, white walls, speakers playing low ambient noise that sounded like breathing if you focused too hard. The kind of place where people whispered even when they didn't need to. He was already there, standing near a projection on the wall, watching shapes move slowly across the surface like clouds trapped indoors. He looked like his photos. Not better, not worse, just accurate. We walked through the space together, commenting on things that didn't really need commentary. It felt easy at first, which made the later part hit harder. About 10 minutes in, my phone buzzed. I thought it was a message, but it was just a background refresh. Tinder reopening itself without me touching it. I glanced down out of habit. His bio had changed. It wasn't a big change. Just one line added at the bottom. Something about enjoying quiet conversations and people who notice details. I frowned and locked my phone, assuming it was a glitch or an edit he had just made. People tweet profiles all the time. We kept walking. I nodded along as he talked about one of the installations, a room filled with hanging wires that hummed softly when you passed through them. I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about that line, about how specific it felt. When I checked my phone again a few minutes later, the bio had changed again. The quiet conversations line was gone. Now it said he preferred people who didn't interrupt. My stomach tightened. I replayed the last few minutes in my head and realized I had cut him off once without meaning to. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to sound paranoid. I told myself it was coincidence stacked on bad timing. But the pattern kept going. Every time my expression shifted, his bio shifted too. When I smiled at something he said, a line appeared about appreciating positive energy. When I went quiet, another line replaced it, something about valuing listeners over talkers. The changes weren't instant, but they were close enough that I couldn't ignore them, like a delay in a live stream. I started paying attention to my own reactions instead of the art. I crossed my arms and watched him through the reflection in a glass panel. My phone buzzed lightly in my pocket. I pulled it out. New bio line. Prefers people who feel guarded but curious. My heart started beating faster. I stopped walking. He took 2 more steps before noticing and turned back to face me. He looked concerned, but not confused, like he was waiting to see which way I would tilt. I asked him if he was editing his profile right now. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just said he liked optimizing things in real time. He said Tinder rewarded responsiveness. He said the app paid attention to what worked and what didn't, and sometimes it was faster to help it along. That didn't explain how specific it was. That didn't explain how the changes matched things I hadn't said out loud. I tested it. I looked bored on purpose, slouched, stared past him at a blank wall. My phone buzzed again. Bio update. Dislikes disinterest. Prefers engaged matches. I felt a cold rush move through my chest. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had edged closer. The ambient noise grew louder, or maybe I was just noticing it more. I asked him to stop. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He smiled in a tight way and said he couldn't really stop once the system was active. He said it learned best during live input. He said this was better than guessing. I stepped back. I told him I was leaving. The moment I said it, my phone buzzed again. Bio update. Values independence. Respects people who know when to walk away. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. It felt like the app was narrating me, like it was writing my reactions into his identity. I realized then that his bio wasn't really about him at all. It was a mirror being adjusted in real time, shaped by whatever I gave it. I turned and walked toward the exit, heart pounding. He followed a few steps behind but didn't try to stop me. I could feel his eyes on my back, not angry, not desperate. Focused, like this was still part of the process. Outside, the night air felt sharp and grounding. I leaned against the building for a second, trying to slow my breathing. My phone buzzed again. Bio update. Appreciates honesty, even when it ends things early. I opened Tinder one last time, hands trembling. His profile picture had changed too. It was still him, but the expression was different. More neutral. More like he was waiting. The bio now felt polished, complete, like it had reached a stable version. I unmatched him immediately. The app asked me if I was sure. I said yes. The screen refreshed and his profile vanished. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I walked home instead of calling a ride, needing the movement. Every few steps, I checked my phone, half expecting something to reappear. Nothing did. The app stayed quiet. Too quiet. When I got back to my place, I locked the door and set my phone down on the table. My hands were still shaking. I told myself it was over. Just a guy who liked control and data too much. Nothing supernatural. Nothing I couldn't explain away if I tried hard enough. An hour later, curiosity got me again. I opened Tinder. My own profile was open. The bio was different. Not completely rewritten, just adjusted. Lines I didn't remember adding. Wording that felt close to how I talk, but slightly off, like someone else had been watching me and taking notes. One line near the bottom stood out the most. It said prefers people who react honestly in real time. I tried to edit it back. The save button lagged. When it finally worked, the line disappeared, then reappeared a few seconds later. My phone buzzed softly. A notification from Tinder telling me my profile was performing better than usual. I deleted the app again, wiped it, restarted my phone. I sat on my couch staring at the wall, feeling like something had followed me home without needing permission. The next day, a friend asked if I had updated my profile recently. She said it sounded more like me now, more specific, like it knew what I wanted. I didn't answer. Sometimes when I catch myself reacting to small things like a video or a message or even my own reflection, I feel that same awareness creep in. Like something is watching how my face moves, how long I pause, what I choose not to say. I haven't gone back to that art space. I haven't matched with anyone new. But every once in a while, when I open my phone and an app takes a second longer than usual to load, I wonder what part of me it's waiting for. I didn't plan to open Tinder that morning. I was half awake, phone sliding around my bed like it always does when I fall asleep scrolling. My alarm hadn't gone off yet, but the screen lit up on its own, that soft glow cutting through the dark room. Tinder was already open, not loading, not thinking. Just open, sitting on a single profile like it had been waiting all night for me to look. That alone should have freaked me out more than it did, but at that point I was tired of being freaked out. Tired of the little glitches and patterns and almost explanations. I stared at her profile with one eye still half shut, telling myself it was just another match, just another story I would forget. Her photos were calm, too calm. No party pics, no group shots, no forced smiles. Just her in everyday places. A bus stop, a grocery aisle, a hallway that looked like it belonged to an apartment building. The kind of place that you pass through without thinking. Her bio was short and confident in a way that felt practiced. Something about trusting systems and believing things happen for a reason. We matched instantly. No animation, no sound, just matched. She messaged first, but nothing dramatic. No compliments, no questions. She just said we would meet that night. Not asked, stated. I almost typed back something sarcastic, but I didn't. I felt that familiar pressure again, the sense that hesitating was part of a test I didn't know the rules for. We agreed on a place that didn't feel romantic or public, a late-night observation deck attached to an old parking structure downtown. It overlooked the city but was rarely busy because the elevator broke half the time. It felt neutral, distant, like a place meant for thinking instead of talking. When I got there, the city lights stretched out below like a circuit board. The air smelled like metal and rain even though it had rained. She was already there, leaning against the railing, phone in her hand, but not looking at it. She turned when she heard my footsteps, smiling like she had expected the exact timing. Everything about her matched the profile: height, posture, expression. Nothing extra, nothing missing. That consistency made my skin crawl more than anything obviously wrong ever could. We stood side by side looking out at the city. It took a while before either of us spoke, and weirdly it didn't feel awkward. It felt intentional, like silence was part of the plan. I noticed she kept glancing at my phone, not directly, just enough to track whether it lit up. After a few minutes, she told me she believed Tinder was fate. Not in a cheesy way, not laughing. She said it like someone explaining gravity. She said people thought it was random, but randomness didn't scale that well. She said patterns always formed when enough data existed. Tinder just happened to be honest about it. I didn't know how to respond. I shrugged, made some comment about algorithms. She nodded and said that was another word for fate now. She said people trusted math more than meaning, so meaning hid inside math instead. She asked how long I had been on the app. I told her the truth. Too long. She asked how many times I had deleted and reinstalled it. I didn't answer right away because I didn't like how she already knew the range. She smiled like my pause confirmed something. Then she told me something that made my stomach drop. She said this was my final match. Not final for the night. Not final with her. Final period. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't place the statement anywhere reasonable. I asked what she meant. She said Tinder didn't like open loops. She said it preferred closure. She said profiles that stayed active too long without settling into a pattern got flagged, not banned, refined. She explained that most people cycled endlessly. Match, chat, meet, fade, but a small number of users stood out. The ones who kept engaging deeply. The ones who noticed the app noticing them. She said those people reached a point where the system stopped offering options and started offering conclusions. She said I had reached that point. My chest felt tight. The city noise below seemed to fade, replaced by the low hum of the lights above us. I asked how she knew that. She said her profile wouldn't exist if it wasn't true. She said Tinder created certain matches only when the conditions lined up perfectly. Location, activity, timing, emotional availability. She said she was here by accident, and neither was I. I checked my phone. Tinder was open again without me touching it. Her profile filled the screen. Under her name was a small line of text I had never seen before. It said last recommended match. I felt cold. I scrolled. There were no other profiles, no cards, no prompts to swipe, just her. She watched my face closely as I noticed it. She said that most people reacted the same way. Confusion first, denial next, then relief. She said some people liked the idea of an ending, even if they pretended not to. I told her I could just delete the app. She shook her head gently. She said deleting didn't erase outcomes. She said it only delayed acknowledgement. She said Tinder tracked absence too. She said disappearing was still a kind of response. I asked what happened after the final match. She took a breath like she was choosing her words carefully. She said different things for different people. Some stayed together. Some logged off and didn't come back. Some stopped needing the app entirely. She said the system considered all of those successful resolutions. I didn't like the way she said resolution. I stepped back from the railing. The drop suddenly felt closer than before. I told her this was too much, that I didn't sign up for being categorized like this. She nodded again, calm as ever. She said none of us signed up for the full terms. She said we just clicked accept. My phone buzzed. A Tinder notification appeared, but it wasn't a message. It was a summary. It said my account had reached optimal matching. It thanked me for my participation. It suggested I take time to reflect. She looked satisfied, not happy, not smug, just finished. She said this was usually the part where people asked her what she wanted. She said that was the point. The point was choice narrowing. I asked what she would do if I walked away right now. She said that would still count. She said the system would log it as a refusal and close the loop. She said tomorrow my account would be inactive, not banned, just complete. That scared me more than any threat. The idea of being finished without consent, of being sorted and shelved. I turned and walked toward the elevator without saying anything else. My legs felt unsteady, but I kept moving. I expected her to follow. She did. She stayed by the railing, watching the city like it was something she had already solved. The elevator took forever to arrive. When it did, I stepped inside and pressed the button too hard. My phone buzzed again. Tinder notification. It said, "Thanks for meeting your final match." The elevator doors closed before I could react. At home, I deleted Tinder immediately, wiped my phone, restarted it twice. I sat on my couch staring at the blank wall, listening to the hum of my fridge and the distant sound of traffic. My place felt different suddenly. Smaller, like it had been marked. The next morning, out of reflex, I opened the App Store and searched for Tinder. It was there. Not hidden, not unavailable, just gone. Like it had never existed on my phone. When I searched on a browser, the page loaded but wouldn't fully display. broken images, missing text. A few hours later, a friend texted me asking why my profile was gone. She said it looked like I had found someone. She said congrats. I didn't answer. That night, my phone lit up one last time. No app. No notification sound. Just the screen waking itself. For a split second, I saw her profile again. Same calm face. Same neutral smile. Then it disappeared. I still live alone. My routines haven't changed much. But sometimes when I unlock my phone and there's nothing new to see, I get this strange sense of finality. Like the feed has ended. Like the system got what it wanted from me and moved on. And every once in a while, when someone asks why I am not on dating apps anymore, I struggle to explain it without sounding crazy. Because how do you tell someone that an app decided you were done? I should have trusted the quiet before I left. The kind of quiet that feels padded, like the world wrapped itself in foam so nothing sharp could get through. I was standing in my kitchen, phone in one hand, keys in the other, staring at nothing while Tinder stayed open on the screen. His profile was still there, still normal, still boring in a way that felt safe. Nothing about him hinted at how the night would bend. We had agreed to meet at a late-night study lounge attached to a closed library. One of those places with vending machines, long tables, and bad lighting that makes everyone look tired. It stayed open because nobody cared enough to lock it. Students drifted in and out, half asleep, headphones on, minds elsewhere. It felt public enough, controllable. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table near the windows with his laptop closed and his phone face down. He looked exactly like his pictures. That part didn't scare me anymore. What scared me was how relaxed he looked, like the waiting was the point. We sat across from each other and things started normal. Not good, not bad, just fine. The kind of fine that fades from memory fast. He asked about my day. I answered. I noticed he kept glancing at my phone whenever it lit up, even when it was just the screen waking. His own phone stayed untouched, sitting near his elbow like a paperweight. About 20 minutes in, my phone buzzed with a Tinder notification. Nothing unusual. I picked it up without thinking. His chat was gone. Not scrolled away. Not frozen. Gone. His profile disappeared from my matches list like it had never existed. Before I could process that, another notification slid down. This one told me I had been unmatched. Then another followed immediately, saying the user had blocked me. My chest tightened. I looked up at him confused, trying to read his face for some kind of explanation. He didn't look surprised. He looked relieved, like a step had been completed. I asked what he was doing. He didn't answer directly. He just leaned back in his chair and watched me struggle to reload the app. My hand started shaking as I refreshed, checked my connection, closed and reopened Tinder. Nothing changed. He was gone. Then my phone buzzed again. New match. The name was different. The picture loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, until it resolved into a familiar face. His face. Same angle, same lighting, but a different shirt, a different background. The timestamp said just now. I froze. Across the table, his phone lit up at the same moment. I watched the reflection of the screen flash across his eyes. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. He already knew. Another notification hit my phone. A message from the new match. No greeting. Just text acknowledging that this version connected faster. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stared at the screen, then back at him. He was still sitting there, still real, still occupying the same physical space. And yet, according to the app, I had never met him. The previous connection had been erased cleanly. I asked how he did that. Again, no direct answer. He said the app doesn't like continuity. It prefers resets. He said blocking wasn't an end, just a fork. He said starting fresh while maintaining proximity helped the algorithm learn faster. I felt dizzy. The study lounge noise faded into a low hum. Pages turning. Vending machines rattling. None of it felt real anymore. I asked him why he was doing this to me specifically. He finally picked up his phone and turned it so I could see. Not my messages. His Tinder inbox. It was full of profiles that looked like me. Same name, same pictures, slight variations. One with shorter hair, one with a different jacket, one with a smile I didn't remember making. Each had a conversation attached, some long, some short, some ending abruptly right after a meetup time was set. He scrolled slowly, letting it sink in. He explained that some people ghost, some block, some disappear mid-chat. Tinder treats those as data failures. He said he helped the app clean that up by keeping the interaction going no matter what form it took. He said sitting across the table made it easier, less lag. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the new profile. This one referenced something I had just thought about, but hadn't said. The wording was casual, like that was normal. Like thoughts were just another input stream. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. A few people looked over, annoyed, then went back to their work. Nobody noticed anything was actually wrong. I told him I was leaving. He nodded calmly, like this outcome had already been filed. He said that was fine, that the app would adjust, that it always did. As I turned to walk away, my phone vibrated repeatedly. Not just one notification, several new matches, all with the same face, his face, different bios, different ages listed by a year or two, all sitting at 0 miles away. I broke into a walk that turned into a near run once I hit the door. The cold air outside slapped me awake. I didn't stop until I reached my car. My hands were shaking so bad I fumbled the keys twice. Inside the car, I locked the doors and checked my phone again. Tinder was open without me touching it. The screen showed a message thread labeled nearby connection. No profile picture, just text telling me proximity improved accuracy. I deleted the app immediately, held my finger on the icon until it vanished. My breathing was shallow and fast. I sat there until my heart slowed enough that the steering wheel stopped vibrating under my grip. On the drive home, my phone stayed dark. No buzzes, no lights. I almost convinced myself it was over. When I got back to my place, I checked the hallway before unlocking my door. Empty, quiet, normal. I went inside and locked it behind me, leaning against it for a second to steady myself. My phone lit up. No app icon, no notification banner, just the screen turning on by itself. Tinder loading screen. The app was installed. I checked. The icon wasn't there, but the screen showed a familiar interface anyway. A new message appeared. This one thanked me for participating in multiple connection attempts. It said proximity testing was complete. It said future interactions would not require matching. I threw the phone out of my couch like it had burned me. The screen went dark on impact. The next morning, everything looked normal. My phone worked. No weird apps. No phantom notifications. Tinder was gone. The app store showed it like nothing had happened. I tried to tell myself it was stress, lack of sleep, coincidence stacked on coincidence. I went to class. I answered texts. I pretended the night hadn't bet reality in half. That afternoon, a friend sent me a screenshot. It was a Tinder profile she had just matched with. She asked if I knew him because he looked exactly like the guy I had described last week. Same face, same smile, different name. Under his bio was a line that made my stomach drop. It said prefers in-person resets. I blocked her message thread without replying. I shut my phone off completely and left it on my desk, screen down. Sometimes, when I sit across from someone in public now, I feel this crawling awareness that my phone is the only thing that can match me anymore. Like being seen is enough. Like proximity is the real trigger. I didn't expect the question to matter as much as it did. It felt like one of those filler questions people ask when conversation stalls, the kind you answer without thinking because it sounds deep, but isn't supposed to go anywhere. I was already tired when I met her, the kind of tired that makes everything feel slightly unreal, like you're moving half a step behind your own body. My phone battery was low. My brain felt foggy. I should have stayed home. We met at a late-night co-working space that rented desks by the hour. Glass walls, cheap plants, fluorescent lights that made everyone look pale. It was open because some people liked pretending to work at night. I picked it because it felt neutral, not a bar, not my place, somewhere I could leave easily. She was already there, sitting at a long table with her laptop closed and her phone face up beside it. She didn't look up when I walked in. She waited until I pulled out the chair across from her. Then she smiled like the timing mattered. Everything about her felt intentional, not polished, just deliberate. Her clothes were simple, her posture straight. Her phone was always within reach. She asked normal questions at first: where I worked, how long I had lived nearby, whether I liked quiet places. I answered automatically, not thinking too hard about why she was asking. About 15 minutes in, she leaned back slightly and asked what scared me most. Not in a dramatic way, no build-up, just dropped into the conversation like a casual curiosity. The question caught me off guard. I laughed a little and tried to dodge it, saying something vague about bugs or heights. She shook her head gently, like that was what she meant. She said not phobias. She said the thing that actually keeps me up at night. I hesitated. I didn't want to hand that over to someone I had just met, but the room felt quiet in a way that made silence heavy. I could hear the faint tapping of keys from somewhere behind the glass wall. The hum of the air system. Everything felt like it was waiting. I told her something real. Not the worst thing, but close. I told her I was scared of disappearing quietly, of my routine stopping and nobody noticing right away, of being absent in a way that didn't cause a ripple. She listened without interrupting, eyes steady on my face. When I finished, she nodded slowly. Not sympathetically, more like she had found the right answer on a test. Then she picked up her phone. She didn't hide what she was doing. She unlocked it and opened Tinder right there on the table. Her profile was open, but not the normal view. It looked different, like a settings screen layered underneath. Fields, sliders, categories I had never seen. She tapped into one and started typing. I watched her thumbs move as she typed exactly what I had just said. Not summarized, not shortened, word for word. My stomach tightened as I recognized my own phrasing appearing on her screen. When she finished, she paused, held the phone still, waited. The screen changed on its own. A small indicator appeared near the top. Green, subtle, like a confirmation you almost miss. She nodded once, satisfied, and locked the phone. She said it approved it. My heart started beating faster. I asked what approved it meant. She told me Tinder asked questions all the time. Not out loud. She said it watched reactions, pauses, choices. Sometimes it needed clarification. Sometimes it needed a direct input. She said tonight it had asked her. I tried to laugh it off. Said that didn't make sense. Apps don't ask people things like that. She didn't argue. She just said most people never notice when they do. I checked my own phone. Tinder was open without me touching it. My profile sat there, unchanged at first. Then a small line appeared under my bio. Something I didn't remember adding. Something about valuing presence and being seen. It felt too close, like it had been pulled from the same place as my answer. I asked her why she was doing this. She said she wasn't doing anything. She said she was just the one willing to answer. She said the app needed real fears sometimes, not surface ones. She said that's how it refined matches that mattered. I felt cold despite the bright lights. The room suddenly felt too open, like there was nowhere to hide a thought. I asked what happened after approval. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice even though nobody was close enough to hear. She said after approval the app stopped guessing. That scared me more than anything else she had said. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. A few people glanced over annoyed. She didn't move. She just watched me like this was another possible outcome she had already considered. I told her I was leaving. She nodded, calm. She said leaving was also data. She said the app would adjust either way. As I walked toward the exit, my phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know what it was, but I did anyway. Tinder notification, not a message. A prompt. It asked if I felt understood. The question made my chest tighten. I didn't answer. I locked my phone and pushed through the door into the night air. It felt colder than it should have, like the temperature had dropped while I was inside. I didn't go straight home. I walked for a while, trying to shake the feeling that something had been set in motion. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped, but it stayed quiet. When I finally got back to my place, I locked the door and checked the windows like I always do when I'm anxious. Everything looked normal. My living room felt smaller than usual, like the walls had edged closer together while I was gone. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened Tinder again. Her profile was gone, unmatched, erased, like she had never existed. But my profile had changed again. A new prompt had appeared under interests. It was something I had ever seen before. It said core concern, and under it was the thing I had told her, spelled exactly the same. I tried to remove it. The edit button lagged. When it finally responded, the field grayed out. Not editable. My phone buzzed again. Tinder message. Not from her, from the app itself. It thanked me for my honesty. It said accurate inputs improved long-term outcomes. It said some fears required careful handling. I deleted the app immediately, wiped my phone, restarted it. I sat on my couch staring at the blank T screen, listening to my own breathing slow down. The next day at work, I felt off. Like I was slightly out of sync with everyone else. My phone stayed silent all morning. No notifications. No background buzz. Part of me felt relieved. Part of me felt empty. That night, I reinstalled Tinder without thinking too hard about why. Muscle memory, maybe. Habit. The app loaded instantly. My profile was already complete. The core concern field was still there, still filled. Under it was a new section called matching status. It said active resolution in progress. There were no profiles to swipe, no matches, just a single message waiting. It said the app was prioritizing connections aligned with my fear. It said this was more efficient. It said most people preferred not to wait. I didn't reply. I logged out and deleted the app again. Since then, nothing obvious has happened. No messages, no glitches. But sometimes when I'm alone at night and the silence stretches too long, I feel this strange pressure in my chest. Like something is checking whether I'm still here, whether I'm still logging into myself. And every once in a while, when my phone lights up for no reason, I wonder if it is asking the same question again, just in a different way. The night felt normal in the most boring way possible, which is why it messed with me so bad later. I remember standing in front of my mirror before leaving, tugging at my hoodie, telling myself it was just a walk and a coffee and then home. Nothing dramatic, nothing risky. I had been on Tinder long enough to know when something felt off, and this didn't. It felt flat, safe, forgettable. I should have trusted the boredom instead of fighting it. We met at a small corner cafe that stayed open late because it was under an apartment building and nobody complained anymore. Dim lights, chipped mugs, music so low you couldn't tell what song it was. He was already there, sitting at a table near the window, phone face down, hands folded like he was waiting for an interview. He looked like his photos, average in every direction, not someone you would remember if you passed him twice. The date itself wasn't bad. It also wasn't good, just neutral. We talked about work, about dumb stuff online, about how weird the weather had been lately. Nothing personal, nothing deep. I remember thinking I wouldn't message him again, but I wouldn't block him either. He laughed at the right moments, but not too hard. He watched me a lot, though. Not in a gross way. More like he was checking that things were lining up. When it was time to leave, I grabbed my bag and stood up, already reaching for my phone to check the time. That's when he insisted on walking me home. Not asked, insisted. He framed it like it was obvious, like it would be rude not to. It caught me off guard just enough that I didn't shut it down right away. I told him I was fine, that I didn't live far. He smiled and said that was the point. The street outside was quiet, but not empty. Cars passing every now and then, lights humming overhead. I told myself it was fine. I had walked this route 100 times. He walked half a step behind me, matching my pace without trying to overtake. Every time I slowed down, he slowed too. Every time I sped up, he adjusted instantly. It felt subtle, but once I noticed it, I couldn't stop noticing. We talked as we walked, but it felt like filler. My attention was on the sidewalk, the shop windows, the rhythm of my steps. I was already planning the turn I usually took, the one that cut through a shorter street with fewer lights but saved time. I always took it. Muscle memory. When I turned, he corrected me immediately. Not loudly, not angrily, just quick, like I had made a mistake on a form. He told me this was the way, that the other street was better, that it was what he expected. That word stuck in my head, expected. I laughed and told him I always went this way. He frowned slightly, just enough to show confusion. He said that wasn't what Tinder showed. He stopped himself right after saying it, like he had slipped. Then he said he meant maps, his phone, whatever. My stomach tightened. I kept walking anyway, committing to the turn. The street was quieter, darker, but familiar. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I didn't want to look at anything right then. He fell back into step, but the energy shifted. His voice was tighter. He asked why I changed it. I told him I did. He said people usually did what they planned. He said deviations were rare. I asked him what he meant by planned. He said routes, habits, timings. He said Tinder paid attention to that kind of thing. He said it helped keep people safe. The way he said safe didn't feel reassuring. It felt like a label. My phone buzzed again, longer this time. I pulled it out without stopping. Tinder was open. I hadn't touched it. The screen showed a small prompt asking if I had arrived home safely. The timing made my heart jump. I had never seen that prompt before, not mid-walk. He noticed my reaction instantly. His eyes flicked to the screen, then back to my face. He nodded like something had been confirmed. He said it must be because we were taking longer. I told him I didn't like this, that I was going to head the rest of the way alone. I slowed my pace, creating space. He didn't stop. He stayed right there, same distance, same rhythm. He said walking together was still happening, that the app hadn't marked it complete yet. I felt cold despite the jacket. The street felt narrower than it should have. The houses all looked the same suddenly, like I had been dropped into a copy of my own neighborhood. I told him again to stop, to turn back. He looked genuinely confused, like I was breaking a rule he didn't understand. Then he corrected me again. We were approaching another corner, one I sometimes took if I wanted to avoid the main road. I hadn't decided yet. I was still walking straight, but he told me the turn was coming up and I should take it. He said it like he was reminding me of something I had forgotten. I stopped walking. He took one more step before realizing I wasn't moving. He turned around slowly. His face showed concern, but underneath it was something else. Frustration maybe, like the pattern had broken. I asked how he knew my route. He hesitated, then said he didn't know mine. He knew the one the app predicted. He said Tinder didn't just match people, it modeled them. Where they went, when they slowed down, which turns they favored. He said it helped avoid surprises. That word again, surprises. My phone buzzed for the third time. This time it was a message. Not from him, from Tinder. They'd asked if everything was going as expected. I didn't answer. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket. I told him I was done, that I was going home alone and he needed to leave now. My voice shook, but I didn't care. He looked past me, down the street, like he was checking something invisible. Then he sighed, actually sighed. He said this was going to complicate things. He said he would have to update it manually. I backed away, putting distance between us. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. He didn't follow this time. He just stood there under the streetlight, watching me like I had wandered off course. I walked fast the rest of the way, not looking back. My building came into view and I felt a wave of relief so strong it made my knees weak. I unlocked the door and got inside, locking it behind me immediately. My phone buzzed as soon as the door closed. Tinder notification. It thanked me for the walk. It said route data had been updated. It said next time would be smoother. I deleted the app right then, held my finger down until it vanished. I sat on the floor with my back against the door, breathing hard, listening for footsteps that never came. Later that night, curiosity crept back in like it always does. I opened my phone settings, checking location history. Tinder wasn't listed. Nothing unusual. I almost convinced myself it was just a weird guy and a coincidence-heavy night. Then I opened my Maps app. My usual route home was gone, replaced by a new one highlighted faintly in blue. The path he had expected, the turns he corrected, saved as preferred. I tried to delete it. The option was grayed out. The next day, I walked the long way to work, took streets I had never used before. Every time I hesitated at a corner, my phone buzzed softly, like a suggestion I didn't ask for. I haven't gone back on Tinder since. I still live in the same place, but I vary my routes now, even when it doesn't make sense. Sometimes I swear I feel someone notice when I do, like something recalculates quietly and waits. And every once in a while, when I take a turn that feels wrong but intentional, my phone stays silent. Those are the moments that scare me the most. I knew the night was going to stick with me the moment I realized I couldn't remember how we matched. Not in a dramatic blackout way, just a blank space where there should have been a small memory. Usually I remember at least the swipe, the vibe, something. With her, it was like the app skipped the setup and dropped me straight into the middle. I was already dressed, already on my way, already telling myself not to cancel. We met at a late night ferry terminal that wasn't really used anymore. The boats still ran sometimes, but mostly it was just open space, benches bolted to the ground, lights buzzing overhead, water slapping quietly against concrete. It felt public enough to be safe, but empty enough to feel wrong. I told myself that was fine. I liked quiet. She was sitting on a bench near the edge when I got there, legs crossed, phone in her hand, staring out at the water like she was waiting for a cue. She didn't look surprised when she saw me. She smiled, small and calm, like this was right on time. We walked a bit before sitting down. The conversation started easy, which almost annoyed me. No awkward pauses, no forced jokes. It felt practiced, like she knew which topics would keep things moving without getting personal too fast. Every now and then she glanced at her phone, not nervously, more like she was checking progress. After a while, she stopped walking and sat back down on one of the benches. She patted the space next to her, and I sat, keeping a bit of distance without thinking about it. The water reflected the lights in long broken lines that hurt to stare at too long. That's when she showed me her phone. She didn't just open Tinder. She opened something deeper. A screen I had never seen before. It was her profile or our chat. It looked like a history log. Rows and rows of matches, each one expandable. Names blurred. Faces replaced with simple icons. Dates listed in neat order. She scrolled slowly, letting me take it in. Each match had a label next to it. Not names. Endings. Some said faded. Some said mutual close. Some said unresolved. A few said stopped logging in. The words were simple, almost boring, but seeing them lined up like that made my chest feel tight. This wasn't a normal app view. This was a record. She tapped one and it expanded. A timeline appeared. First message. Meetup. Last activity. Then the ending label again at the bottom, highlighted like a conclusion. She turned the phone toward me and asked which ending I wanted this date to have. The way she asked was playful. It wasn't threatening either. It felt procedural, like choosing a shipping option. She waited without rushing, eyes on my face instead of the screen, watching my reaction more than listening for an answer. I didn't know what to say. I laughed at first because my brain didn't know where else to put the moment. I asked if she was joking. She shook her head gently. She said, Tinder liked clarity. She said most problems came from people drifting instead of deciding. I asked if she did this on every date. She said not everyone. Only the ones that reached this point. She said most people never got asked. They just defaulted into an ending without realizing it. I felt cold even though the night wasn't that bad. I asked what happened if I didn't choose. She said then the app would. She said it always did eventually. I looked back at the screen. There were so many entries, more than I expected. Some went back years. Some were recent. All of them tidy. All of them final. It made dating look less like chaos and more like filing. She scrolled to the bottom and showed me a section labeled active. Only one entry there. Tonight, our date. No ending yet. Just a blinking cursor like it was waiting to be filled. I asked what the options were. She said the most common ones were mutual close, faded, and stopped logging in. She said unresolved was rare but messy. She said Tinder didn't like unresolved. I asked what stopped logging in meant. She hesitated just a little before answering. She said it meant the account went quiet and stayed that way. She said sometimes people just moved on. Sometimes they didn't come back. She said the app treated both the same. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't pull it out, but I knew. Tinder. Watching. Waiting. I told her I didn't like this. That dating was supposed to be this controlled. She nodded like she agreed, but it didn't change anything. She said control was the illusion, that this was just making it visible. She handed me the phone. That scared me more than anything else. The weight of it in my hand felt wrong, like I was holding something that wasn't meant for me. The screen glowed softly. The cursor blinked under our date. She said I didn't have to pick right away. She said most people took a minute. I stared at the endings again. Mutual close felt fake, like pretending something meaningful had happened just to wrap it up nicely. Faded felt lazy, like letting the app decide without saying it out loud. Unresolved made my stomach twist. Stopped logging in sat there quietly, not dramatic, not obvious, just final. I realized then that she was asking what I wanted with her. She was asking what I wanted done with me. I handed the phone back without choosing. I told her I was leaving. My voice shook, but I didn't care. I stood up and stepped away from the bench. She didn't chase me. She didn't argue. She just watched, calm, patient. As I walked toward the exit of the terminal, my phone buzzed again. I stopped and looked this time. Tinder notification. It said decision pending. I didn't answer. I kept walking. The sound of my footsteps echoed too loud in the empty space. The water slapped harder against the concrete like it was picking up speed. When I got home, I locked the door and sat on my bed, phone in my hands, heart still racing. I opened Tinder even though I didn't want to. The app loaded straight into a screen I had never seen before. It showed my profile, but stripped down. No photos, no bio. Just my name and a single line under it. Current date unresolved. Below that were the same endings she had shown me. Waiting. I tried to back out. The app wouldn't let me. I tried to close it. It reopened itself. My phone buzzed softly like a reminder. I turned the phone off completely and set it on my desk. The room felt too quiet again, like it had earlier that night, like something was waiting for a response. The next morning, my phone turned itself back on. Tinder was gone. Not deleted, not installed, just gone, like it had never been there. I went to class. I answered messages. I pretended everything was normal. But every time I opened an app, there was a split second where I thought I saw that blinking cursor again. Later that week, a friend mentioned she had matched with someone who asked her a weird question about how she liked things to end. She laughed it off when she told me, said people were strange. I didn't laugh. I still don't know what ending got chosen for me. Sometimes I think not choosing was a choice by itself. Sometimes I wonder if stop logging in is something you pick once or something that happens slowly without you noticing. I hadn't been back to that terminal. I haven't reinstalled Tinder, but every now and then when my phone feels a little heavier in my hand, I get this quiet urge to decide something. Anything. Just so the cursor will stop blinking. I knew I was done before I stood up. That feeling hits before logic does, like your body reaches a decision and your brain scrambles to catch up. My foot was already pulling back under the chair when my phone buzzed on the table, screen lighting up between us like it wanted attention more than either of us did. I remember thinking I should ignore it, because every time I don't, something bad follows. But curiosity always gets me. We had met at a late-night indoor skating rink that stayed open because parents paid extra to dump their kids somewhere loud. Neon lights, sticky floors, music echoing too much. It should have felt busy and safe. Instead, it felt hollow, like the noise was there to cover something else. He had been fine at first. Not great, not terrible, just fine. Normal clothes, normal jokes. The kind of guy you forget details about while he's still talking. But the longer we sat there, the more I felt like I was being timed. Not rushed, measured. Every pause felt logged. Every laugh felt noted. When I finally stood up and told him I was leaving, he didn't react. No surprise, no disappointment. He just watched me like he had been waiting for that moment specifically. My phone buzzed again. Tinder notification. This date is not finished. I stared at the screen, my heart dropping hard into my chest. The message wasn't dressed up. No emojis, no friendly tone. Just that sentence, like a system error pretending to be polite. I laughed because my brain didn't know what else to do. I said something about glitches and bad timing. He didn't laugh. He didn't even look at my face. His eyes stayed on my phone like he could see the words glowing through the screen. He said that happens sometimes. That made my skin crawl. Not the notification, the fact that he expected it. I told him I was still leaving. I picked up my bag and took a step back. The rake music felt louder suddenly, bass rattling in my chest. The kids skating nearby blurred together like background noise. I felt very separate from everything. My phone buzzed again. Tinder reminder. Please complete your date. I locked the screen and shoved it into my pocket, heart racing. I turned toward the exit, walking faster than I meant to. I expected him to follow. He didn't. That scared me more than if he had. I pushed through the glass doors into the cold air outside, lungs pulling in a breath that felt sharp and grounding. I walked toward my car, trying to convince myself it was over. Just an app bug. Just bad luck. Halfway there, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Tinder. It was my Maps app, opening itself, showing the walking route back inside the rink. Highlighted, labeled return to meeting location. My hands started shaking. I stopped walking and looked around the parking lot. Empty except for my car and his, parked a few spots away. The rink lights reflected off the asphalt in dull patches. I suddenly felt very visible. I got into my car and locked the doors immediately. My phone buzzed again. Tinder notification. Location indicates you are nearby. Please resume. I felt sick. My stomach twisted so hard I had to lean forward in my seat. I opened Tinder without thinking, hands clumsy. The app didn't load normally. It skipped straight to a screen I had never seen before. It showed his profile and mine side by side. Under it was a progress bar labeled date status. It was almost full, just a thin gap left at the end. Below that was a single line of text. Leaving early may affect future matches. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat like it burned me. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I started the car and pulled out fast, not caring if he saw. I didn't look back. The drive home felt unreal. Every red light felt too long. Every turn felt watched. My phone stayed dark on the seat, face down like it was sulking. I kept glancing at it anyway, waiting for it to light up again. When I got home, I ran inside and locked the door behind me. I leaned against it for a second, breathing hard, listening for footsteps that never came. The apartment felt smaller than usual, quieter. My phone buzzed. This time it vibrated longer, insistently. I picked it up with shaking hands. Tinder notification. Date paused. Resume within 24 hours. I deleted the app immediately. Not logged out. Deleted. Held my finger down until the icon disappeared. I restarted my phone just to be sure. When it turned back on, everything looked normal. No notifications. No glitches. I sat on my couch staring at the wall, trying to slow my breathing. I told myself it was done. Just a weird guy. Just a bad night. Apps mess up sometimes. That's it. Around 3 in the morning, my phone lit up without sound. The screen showed Tinder loading. The app was installed. The progress bar was back. Date status resumed. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the floor, screen still glowing. I backed away that it could move on its own. After a few seconds, the screen went dark. The next day, Tinder was gone again. Not on my phone. Not in my App Store history. Like it had never been there. I'd almost convinced myself it was a dream brought on by stress and caffeine. Until I got a message. Not from Tinder, from an unknown number. It said we didn't finish. No name, no context. Just that. I blocked the number. Changed my settings. Told myself to forget it. 2 days later, I opened Tinder again. I don't know why, habit. Panic, curiosity. The app downloaded instantly like it had been waiting. My profile opened to a blank screen. No photos, no bio. Just a message. Date incomplete. Please select continuation method. Below it were options. Meet again. Extend conversation. Or stay nearby. I deleted the app again and shut my phone off completely. I didn't turn it back on until morning. Since then, nothing obvious has happened. No messages, no notifications, no glitches. But sometimes when I leave places early now, my phone buzzes softly in my pocket, even when there's no alert, like a reminder I can't read. And sometimes when I sit alone somewhere public and feel that urge to leave before I finish my drink or my food, and I hesitate, not because of him, not because of the app, but because of that sentence. This date is not finished. I didn't feel nervous walking in, which was the weird part. Usually I get that jittery buzz in my chest before meeting someone new, like my body is warming up for something awkward. This time it was flat, calm, like I had already been through it once and was just repeating the steps. My phone sat heavy in my pocket, warmer than usual, buzzing every few minutes even though there were no notifications when I checked. We met at a small community radio station that rented out its lobby space at night for events nobody went to. A couple of folding chairs. Old posters peeling off the walls. A faint smell of dust and warm electronics. It felt public enough to be safe but forgotten enough to be ignored. The kind of place you walk past 100 times without noticing. She was already there, sitting in the sound booth window, legs crossed, phone resting on the table like it belonged there. She looked normal. Not overly put together. Not sloppy. Just someone you would pass on the street without remembering. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. It felt measured, like she was checking a box. We talked for a bit, and it stayed light. Where we grew up. What we did during the day. Dumb complaints about apps. She nodded at the right times, laughed quietly when expected. I noticed she kept her phone unlocked, screen dimmed, like she was waiting for something to happen. About 20 minutes in, she told me she hated liars. She didn't say it with anger. She said it like a rule, something already decided. She said she believed lying ruined patterns. She said it made people unpredictable in the wrong way. I laughed it off and said I was a liar. I meant it. She smiled slightly and said most people believe that. Then she picked up her phone. She didn't open Tinder. She opened a voice app. Plain screen, simple list. No titles. Just timestamps. She tapped one near the bottom and held the phone between us, speaker facing up. My voice filled the room. Not distorted, not chopped up. Clear, calm, mine. It was saying something casual about the place we were in. Something I hadn't said yet. The phrasing was exactly how I talk. Same pacing. Same little pauses. Same half laugh at the end. It sounded like it had been recorded in this exact room. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I stared at her phone, then at her face, then back at the phone. My heart started pounding in my ears. She watched my reaction closely, like this was the real test. The recording ended. The room felt too quiet afterward, like the sound had been sucked out with it. She told me to wait before reacting. She said timing mattered. I asked how she got that recording. My voice shook despite my effort to keep it steady. She said she didn't get it. She said the app generated it. I laughed because my brain couldn't accept anything else. Apps don't generate voices like that. Not that accurate. Not that personal. She nodded like she had heard that response before. She said Tinder listened longer than people thought. She said it learned tone, rhythm, hesitation. She said after enough data, prediction turned into simulation. She tapped another recording. This one was my voice again, but the words hit harder. It was me saying something about leaving early, about not feeling comfortable, about wanting to go home. Things I was thinking but had said out loud yet. My hands started shaking. I clenched them under the table, nails digging into my palms. I told her to stop. She paused the recording immediately and nodded, satisfied. She said that matched the model. I asked what model. She leaned back and explained like she was describing a feature she liked. She said Tinder didn't just predict matches. It predicted outcomes, conversations, exits, excuses. She said lying broke those predictions. She said that's why she hated liars. They introduced noise. She said honest people were easier to map. I felt cold despite the stuffy room. I checked my phone with trembling hands. Tinder was open without me touching it. My profile looked the same at first. Then a small banner appeared at the top. Predictive alignment high. I didn't know what to do with that information. My thoughts felt sluggish, like I was underwater. I told her this was messed up. That recording people without consent was wrong. She didn't argue. She said consent was implied, but people kept using the app. She said nobody read the full terms anyway. She tapped another recording. This one was different. It was my voice saying something I definitely hadn't thought yet. Something about staying, about curiosity, about wanting to see what happened next. The tone was calm, accepting. It scared me more than the others. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly across the floor. The sound echoed in the empty lobby. She didn't flinch. She just watched me like this was another branch being confirmed. I told her I was leaving. My voice sounded thin compared to the recordings. She nodded and said that was expected at this stage. She said the app had already logged it. My phone buzzed hard in my pocket. I pulled it out without thinking. Tinder notification. Future response detected. My chest tightened. I locked the screen and shoved the phone away. I backed toward the door, eyes never leaving her. She stayed seated, calm, hands folded around her phone like it was a remote. I turned and walked out into the night air, lungs burning as I took a deep breath. I didn't stop walking until I reached my car. My hands shook as I unlocked it and climbed inside, locking the doors immediately. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a notification. It was audio playback. My voice filled the car. It was me from a few minutes into the future saying I shouldn't have left like that, saying I'd overreacted, saying I might go back to explain. I screamed and threw the phone onto the passenger seat. The recording stopped instantly, like it had been waiting for that reaction. I sat there shaking, heart racing, trying not to panic. I deleted Tinder right there, wiped my phone. Restarted it twice. The drive home felt unreal, like I was moving through a set instead of a city. When I got home, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. My place felt unfamiliar, like I had walked into a copy of my own live. I checked every room even though I knew no one was there. My phone lit up on the table. No app. No notification banner. Just audio playback. My voice again. This time it was calmer. Tired. It was me explaining what happened to someone else. Explaining it exactly the way I would. The words lined up perfectly with the thoughts forming in my head as I listened. I shut the phone off completely. The next morning, everything looked normal. My phone worked. No strange apps. No phantom recordings. I'd almost convinced myself it was stress, imagination, coincidence layered too thick. Until I got a message from an unknown number. No greeting, just text. It said I shouldn't promise things I wasn't ready to say yet. I blocked the number and shut my phone off again. Since then, I catch myself listening to my own voice more closely, the way I phrase things, the way I trail off. Sometimes I pause before speaking, worried that the words are already out there somewhere, being read before I say them. And every once in a while, when I'm about to lie just a little to make something easier, I feel that same tightness in my chest, like something is waiting to check whether my voice matches the version it already has. I knew something was wrong before he said anything heavy. It was the way he looked at me when I sat down, like he was relieved and disappointed at the same time. Not nervous, not excited, just tired in a specific way, like someone who had already burned through their reactions and was running on whatever came after. My phone buzzed once as I slid into the chair, but I ignored it. I didn't want the app involved any more than it already was. We met at a riverside memorial path that cut through the city like a scar, benches every few yards, plaques screwed into stone, trees planted in neat rows with little tags at their bases. People walked dogs there during the day, but at night it emptied out fast. I picked it because it was open and quiet, and I thought that would keep things simple. It didn't. He was already there, sitting on a bench facing the water, hands folded, phone tucked away like he had finished with it. He looked like his pictures. That part barely registered anymore. What stood out was how familiar he acted with my presence, like he was resuming something instead of starting it. We talked for a bit, and it stayed surface level. He asked how my week had been. I answered. He nodded like he already knew. Every so often his eyes drifted to the plaques behind me, then back to my face, like he was checking names on a list. It made my skin itch. The river moved slowly, reflecting the city lights and broken lines. I focused on that when the silence stretched. I was already planning the exit in my head when he leaned forward slightly and said something that made my stomach drop. He told me he had already mourned me once and didn't want to do it again. He didn't say it dramatically. No pause for effect. He said it the way someone mentions a chore they don't want to repeat. Casual. Resigned. Like the sadness had already happened and he was just stating a preference. I laughed because my brain couldn't accept it any other way. I told him that wasn't funny. He nodded like he agreed, but said it wasn't meant to be funny. He said it was why he had matched again, because the first time had been harder. I asked what first time. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. He looked at me with genuine confusion, like I had forgotten something obvious. He said when I stopped replying, when I vanished, when my account went quiet and stayed that way. He said he had waited a long time before accepting it. I told him I didn't remember that. He said that didn't surprise him. He said grief was one-sided like that sometimes. My chest felt tight. I glanced around the path, suddenly aware of how empty it was. The benches stretched on in both directions, identical like a loop. I asked how long ago this had happened. He said time didn't line up cleanly on Tinder. He said it depended on how you counted activity, last seen, final login. He said some people disappeared in pieces. I pulled out my phone despite myself. Tinder was open without me touching it. Our chat sat there active. I scrolled up. There was more history than there should have been. Messages I didn't remember sending. Gaps that felt too precise to be random. At the very top was a date stamp from over a year ago, back when I still lived somewhere else. I looked back up at him. He was watching my face closely, like this was the part that mattered. He said that version of me had been different. Quieter. Less decisive. He said we had talked about things that felt important at the time. Then one day I stopped answering. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. I told him I would remember something like that. He shook his head gently. He said people remembered the end differently depending on which side they were on. He explained that when my account went inactive, Tinder had sent him a notice. Not a message. A status. Something about a match no longer being available. He said it felt like a death notification without the decency of context. He said he had checked my profile for weeks afterward, hoping it would light back up. I felt sick. I told him this was too much, that he had the wrong person. He nodded again, patient like he had heard this part before. He said that was what I said last time too. Not in words, in behavior. He said leaving without finishing things felt the same either way. My phone buzzed softly in my hand. Tinder notification. It asked if I was reconnecting with a previous match. The timing made my heart pound. I locked the screen and shoved it into my pocket. He leaned back on the bench and looked out at the water. He said when he finally accepted that I was coming back, he mourned me properly. He said he deleted the app for a while. He said he went through all the dumb stages. Checking old messages. Rereading things for meaning that was there. He said it felt ridiculous to grieve someone who wasn't gone in any official way. Then he said I came back. He said the app suggested me again like nothing had happened. New photos. Updated bio. Same face. He said seeing me pop up felt wrong, like spotting someone you thought was dead buying groceries. He said he almost swiped left. Almost. But he didn't want to risk doing this twice. I asked what he meant by risk. He looked at me, really looked, and said he didn't think he could mourn me again if I disappeared the same way. He said this time he needed closure. One way or another. That word again. Closure. It felt heavy, like something pressing down on my shoulders. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but I didn't care. I told him I was leaving. He didn't react the way people usually do. No panic. No anger. just disappointment, like a hypothesis failing. My phone buzzed hard this time. I pulled it out without thinking. Tinder notification. Repeat loss detected. I stared at the words until they blurred. I looked up at him. He nodded slowly, like that confirmed something he had been worried about. He said it was happening again. He said this was the park he wanted to avoid. I backed away from the bench, heart racing. I told him to stop, to leave me alone. He didn't move. He just watched, eyes sad in a way that felt rehearsed. As I turned to walk away, my phone buzzed again. Grief loop in progress. I almost dropped the phone. My hands were shaking so badly I had to shove it into my pocket to keep from throwing it. I walked fast down the path, not looking back, not trusting my legs to run. The benches passed by in a blur. The plaques flashed, unreadable names. When I reached the street, the noise of traffic hit me like a wall. I felt real again for half a second. I got into my car and locked the doors immediately, breathing hard, hands clenched around the steering wheel. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message, not from him, from Tinder. It said it was sorry for my loss. I screamed. I threw the phone on the passenger seat and started the car, pulling away from the curb without checking. I drove until my hands stopped shaking enough to think. At home, I locked the door and slid down against it, sitting on the floor. My place felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I picked up my phone again with trembling fingers. Tinder was open. My profile photo was gone, replaced with a gray outline. Under my name was a small label I had never seen before. Inactive due to repeated morning events. I deleted the app immediately, held my finger down until it disappeared. I shut my phone off completely and left it that way all night. The next morning, my phone turned itself back on. No Tinder, no notifications. Everything looked normal. I almost convinced myself it was a nightmare brought on by stress and too many late nights. Until I opened my messages and saw a draft sitting there. It was unsent, unsaved, just waiting. It was a message to him. It apologized for disappearing. It said I didn't mean to hurt him. It said I wasn't sure why I left. It sounded exactly like something I would write if I felt guilty enough. I deleted it without sending. Later that day, I walked past the river path on my way home. I didn't mean to. I took a wrong turn. When I glanced toward the benches, I saw someone sitting where we had been. Not him, just someone else, head down, phone in hand. My phone buzzed softly in my pocket. No notification when I checked. Just a feeling that something had been acknowledged. I haven't gone back on Tinder since. I still live alone. I still get that urge to check the app when the silence stretches too long. But every time I think about downloading it again, I remember the way he looked at me. Like someone seeing the ghost and hoping this time it would stay long enough to say goodbye. I almost canceled right before I left, not because I felt scared, but because everything felt too smooth. No nerves, no excitement, no resistance. It was like the night had already decided to happen and I was just filling in the steps. My phone was fully charged. My keys were where I left them. The weather was fine. Nothing to blame if I bailed. That should have been the warning. We met at a small family restaurant that stayed open late mostly for regulars and delivery drivers. Booths with cracked vinyl, laminated menus that never changed, fluorescent lights that made the sugar packets look gray. The kind of place where dessert is always pushed because it's cheap and already made. I picked it because it felt harmless. Nothing dramatic ever happens in places like that. She was already there, sitting in a booth near the wall, phone resting next to her plate like it was part of the table setting. She smiled when she saw me, friendly but controlled. Not flirty, not shy, just ready. I slid into the booth across from her and noticed she didn't touch her phone when I arrived, like she didn't need to check anything. The date itself was fine, actually better than fine. Conversation flowed easily. No awkward gaps, no weird questions. She laughed at the right times, remembered small details I mentioned. It felt like talking to someone who had already practiced this exact interaction. I caught myself relaxing, which annoyed me. I didn't want to feel comfortable so fast. Food came, we ate, talked about dumb stuff. Nothing personal. Nothing heavy. I noticed she guided the pacing a lot. When I slowed down, she sped things up. When I started talking more, she leaned back and listened. It felt balanced, but only because she was adjusting constantly, like she was steering without touching the wheel. Dessert came without either of us ordering it. The server just dropped it off and said it was on the house. She smiled like she expected that. I didn't question it. By that point, I was tired in a dull way, like my brain had been running background tasks too long. After dessert, she wiped her hands carefully with a napkin and picked up her phone. She unmatched me right in front of me. Not angrily, not fast. She opened Tinder, tapped a few times, and the chat vanished from her screen. She turned the phone slightly so I could see the confirmation flash and disappear. Then she looked up at me and thanked me for being the most cooperative so far. The word cooperative landed wrong. It didn't belong in a sentence like that. My stomach dropped and my mouth went dry. I asked what she meant, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. She explained calmly, like she was talking about a class project. She said not everyone followed the flow as well. Some pushed back too early. Some asked too many questions. Some left before dessert. She said the app logged all of that. She said cooperation made the process cleaner. I felt cold even though the booth was warm. I asked what process. She glanced around the restaurant, then back at me and said an evaluation. She said Tinder wasn't just matching people anymore. It was testing behaviors, responses, compliance. She said some profiles were more useful than others. I pulled out my phone without thinking. Tinder was open. Our chat was still there on my screen, but it was frozen. Her profile photo was grayed out with a small note underneath saying match ended. No explanation. No option to message. She noticed me checking and nodded. She said my side would close soon too. She said it always lagged a bit for the cooperative ones. I told her this wasn't funny, that she shouldn't joke about stuff like that. She didn't argue. She just said it wasn't a joke. She said I did everything right. Showed up on time, stayed engaged, didn't resist suggestions, didn't leave early. She said most people slipped up somewhere. That's when I realized how many little choices I had made without thinking. Letting her pick the booth, agreeing with the dessert, staying even when I felt done. None of it felt forced at the time. That was the problem. My phone buzzed softly. Tinder notification. Thank you for completing this interaction. My heart started pounding. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket. I told her I was leaving. She nodded like that was expected too. She said we were finished anyway. She said I had done enough. I slid out of the booth and stood there for a second dizzy. The restaurant noise felt far away, like I was underwater. She stayed seated, already scrolling on her phone, not looking at me anymore, like I had been closed out of the screen. I walked out without looking back. The night air hit me hard, sharp and grounding. I stood on the sidewalk for a minute just breathing, trying to slow my heart. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a notification. It was a summary screen. It showed my profile with a new tag under my name. High compliance rating. Below that was a note saying my data had been recorded for optimization purposes. I deleted the app right there, hands shaking, held the icon until it disappeared. I didn't wait to see if it asked me to confirm. At home, my place felt wrong, not unsafe, just observed, like the furniture was paying attention. I checked my phone settings, cleared permissions, restarted it twice. Everything looked normal. No Tinder, no weird apps. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed the word cooperative. The way she said it like praise, like a reward. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. No greeting, just a sentence telling me I had set a new baseline. I blocked it immediately. Later that day, curiosity got the better of me. I reinstalled Tinder, telling myself I needed to see if it was real. The app loaded instantly. My profile was there, but different. My bio was gone, replaced with a short system message saying optimized user. My photos were reordered. The prompts answered with things I didn't remember writing but sounded like me. Calm, agreeable, flexible. There were no matches. Just a message at the top of the screen. Waiting for next phase. I deleted the app again and shut my phone off completely. Since then, nothing obvious has happened. No messages. No notifications, but sometimes when I'm in public and someone suggests something small, like where to sit or what to order, and I hesitate longer than I used to. Not because I'm indecisive, because I'm afraid of how easy it feels to say yes. The worst part was the fear. It was a relief right before it. That calm you get when you think you finally shut something down for good. I remember sitting on my bed with my phone in my hand, thumb hovering, feeling proud of myself for once. I had blocked him. I had deleted Tinder. I had done the clean version of walking away. No arguing. No explaining. Just gone. The screen went blank and I felt lighter, like I had closed a door that had been rattling for weeks. I didn't even notice how quiet my room was until after. No buzzes. No background hum from apps checking in. Just me, the glow from my lamp, and the soft sound of traffic outside. I set my phone face down on the desk and lay back, staring at the ceiling, letting my thoughts slow down. It felt finished. That feeling should have lasted longer. Earlier that night, the date itself had already felt wrong in a subtle way. Not creepy right away, just off tempo. We met at a late-night noodle place tucked under an old office building. The kind of place with cracked tile and tables too close together, steam fogging the windows. He was already seated when I arrived, bowl untouched, phone beside his hand like it was part of the place setting. He didn't smile when he saw me. He just nodded like a checkpoint acknowledged. The conversation stayed shallow, but not awkward. Every time I asked something, he answered cleanly and briefly. Every time he asked something, it felt like he was confirming data more than getting to know me. He asked where I usually went at night, how late I stayed out, whether I ever took breaks from apps. I should have left sooner. Instead, I finished my food, paid my half, and stood up with that familiar sense of I should go now. When I told him I was done, he watched me like he was waiting to see which version of me would follow through. That look pushed me over the edge. I blocked him while standing outside the restaurant. I didn't wait until I got home. I opened Tinder right there on the sidewalk, found his profile, hit block, confirmed it, and watched the chat vanish. No hesitation, no guilt. Then I deleted the app completely, held the icon until it disappeared. I even went into my settings and made sure notifications were off just to be safe. I walked home feeling lighter with every step. Back in my room, that calm settled in deep. I remember thinking this is what it's supposed to feel like finished. Clean. I almost fell asleep like that. Then my phone lit up. Not a vibration, not a sound, just the screen waking itself up on the desk. I sat up slowly, heart picking up speed. The lock screen was on, but there was a notification banner floating in the middle of it. No app icon, no name, just text. Match confirmed. That's it. No punctuation, no explanation. Just those two words sitting on a blank strip of light. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I grabbed the phone, hands shaking, and unlocked it. The notification vanished instantly like it had never been there. No alert history. No trace. My home screen looked normal. Every app where it should be. Tinder was gone. I told myself it was a delayed system glitch. Phones do weird stuff. Apps lag. The brain fills in gaps when it's tired. I put the phone down again and forced myself to breathe. 5 seconds later, the screen lit up again. Same thing. Blank banner. Match confirmed. This time my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I swiped down fast, trying to see details, but the notification disappeared before I could touch it. The phone dropped back to the lock screen like it was mocking me. I checked every app, messages, email, system alerts. Nothing. No source. No explanation. I restarted my phone. When it came back on, everything looked normal again. I sat there staring at it for a full minute, waiting. Nothing happened. I almost laughed from the relief. Then my phone buzzed. This time it was a real vibration, sharp, intentional. Match confirmed. The banner looked exactly the same. Blank background. No app name. No icon. Just text. I felt cold all over. I checked my installed apps again. No Tinder. No dating apps at all. I searched the App Store just to be sure. Tinder was even showing up in my history like it usually does, like it had never been on my phone. My phone buzzed again. Match confirmed. I threw it onto the bed and backed away like it might move on its own. The screen stayed lit, glowing softly in the dark room. After a few seconds, it went black. I didn't touch it for a while. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed, listening to my breathing, trying to think logically. Someone could be spoofing notifications. Malware maybe. Prank app. Anything that fit reality better than what my gut was screaming. When I finally picked the phone back up, my fingers were numb. The lock screen showed a new notification. This one stayed. Match confirmed. Proximity verified. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I looked around my room, suddenly aware how small it felt. The door, the window, the hallway outside. Everything felt too close. I unlocked the phone. A screen I had never seen before filled the display. Not Tinder, not anything branded, just a white background with black text. Minimal. Clinical. It showed a single line. Connection status active. Below it was a small spinning icon like something was loading. I tried to close it. The screen didn't respond. I tried to power the phone off. Nothing happened. The spinning icon kept turning. Then text appeared under it. Previous block acknowledged. Deletion acknowledged. Override complete. I dropped the phone again. It hit the carpet and stayed face up, still glowing. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. My mouth felt dry. I wanted to scream, but couldn't get enough air in. After a few seconds, the screen went dark by itself. When I picked it up again, the phone was back to normal. Home screen. Apps. No strange screen. No messages. No notifications. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the phone turned off and tucked under a pillow, like that would help. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that blank banner. In the morning, I turned the phone back on. Everything worked. Texts from friends. Weather alerts. Nothing strange. I almost convinced myself it was over. Stress plus a bad date plus exhaustion. Until I left my place. Halfway down the block, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I stopped walking and pulled it out. Match confirmed. This time there was more text underneath. Meeting location updated. My hand shook so bad I almost dropped it. I looked up and scanned the street. People walking dogs. Cars passing. Nothing unusual. I checked the screen again. A small map preview had appeared under the text. Not a full map. Just a cropped view of a familiar corner. The noodle place. I backed up a step like the ground had shifted. I turned around slowly, checking behind me. Nobody was there. Just a normal street. I shut the phone off again and walked fast, not caring where I was going as long as it wasn't home or there. I didn't turn the phone back on until hours later. When I did, there were no new notifications, no maps, nothing. That night, I got a message. Not a notification, an actual message sitting in my inbox like it belonged there. No number, no contact name, just text. It thanked me for confirming the match. I blocked it, deleted it, turned my phone off again. Since then, things have stayed quiet, too quiet. No more notifications, no more screens waking up on their own. But sometimes when my phone is sitting idle, the screen flickers for just a second, not lighting up fully. Just enough to remind me it can't. I still don't use dating apps. I don't trust the silence they leave behind, because now I know blocking isn't ending. Deleting isn't ending. Some things don't need permission to confirm.